At Capella University, education is as smart as the world around us. With the FlexPath format, you can take classes at your own pace, set your own deadlines, and even leverage your previous experience to move faster. Now that's smart. Learn more at capella.edu.
And continuing on, Sinister Vax, Project Blue Book, gorgeous. Where are you? Cedric, what's happening, man? Magnus, thank you for joining us. Pascal, bonjour, my friend. How are you? Always a pleasure to have you here. Yes, we do have a brand new website, spacedoutradio.com. The gorgeous Ave Marie. There she is, everyone. Give us a wave. Science Bob, thank you so much for your dedication and support of Spaced Out Radio with that super chat, my friend. Really do appreciate you. Low Pro, good to see you. Michael Huntington, how's your goatee? Please let us know with an update. 416 Bitcoin. Glenn John McEnroe, the pride of Wimbledon. Good to have you here as we continue on. And let's see here. Where are we? War Eagle to you. And who's this? Sinister Vax. Thank you so much for that. We got about 20 seconds here, everyone. Remember, Super Chats are a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. We are here 7 days a week for you as we do this thing. I'm here Monday through Friday, Lynn Wallington Saturdays and Sundays. And remember, we're always here. Thank you to all the veterans who are tuning us in. We absolutely love you. Get your horns up. Get ready. Let's kick it off right now. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Check out our swag, rock the Bumblefoot, and read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Oh, we got a good one for you tonight. We are joined by co-host Dr. Bob McGuire, a.k.a. Science Bob, formerly of Virginia Tech University, and we are getting deep into the science of UFOs. Many people don't know in UFO land that there is a group of scientists, real scientists, looking into the UAP phenomena. These men and women are spread out from universities, colleges, and research groups from around the world. Tonight, two of the top board members of the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies are here. Dr. Paul Kingsbury is a friend of mine. He's a professor of geography at Simon Fraser University here in British Columbia. Robert Powell is the head of the SCU. He has a BS degree in chemistry and is a former collegiate debater. He has 28 years experience in engineering management in the semiconductor industry. And once again, he also has spent time with MUFON. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Spaced Out Radio. It's not very often that we don't get into the woo, but the who, what, where, when, why, and most importantly, how. So thank you so much. Paul, I'm going to start with you because I'm very familiar with you, and you are a good friend of mine and on this show, and I have no problem admitting that because, you know, we got to hang out a couple of years ago in Vancouver, and you are someone who absolutely... Let's go back, 6, 7 years? Didn't believe a thing, thought we were all lunatics, wingnuts, tinfoil wearing hats, working at 7-Eleven at the night shift with no dental plan, and now here you are on the SCU, my friend.
Here we are. Yeah, thanks. It's good to see you again, Dave. It's been a long time. Really good to be on the show, and it's, You've got Bob there, and I've got my Robert as well, and he's going to bring a lot of scientific insight as well. But it's been a long journey with my project, and yeah, it's just been a fascinating look at, broad topic of paranormal investigation cultures, various aspects to that. But certainly joining the SCU has deepened the project and extended my perception of the field.
Well, we're so glad to have you back. And Mr. Robert Powell, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really appreciate you. This is my first opportunity to get to talk to you. And I'm going to admit, I'm a little sweaty. I'm a little nervous here because, I don't want to look stupid in front of such brilliant men here tonight. But for you, you are a former member of MUFON. I believe you were 10 years into MUFON. You come across this subject very naturally. What does it mean to you to see this or be the head of this great phenomena called the SCU, where real scientists, real people, real researchers are looking heavily into this phenomena?
Well, thanks, Dave. It's great to be on your show. I will say I'm not actually the head. There was a group of us, 3 individuals who had initially founded the SCU. So I'm one of the executive board members, and we have a total of 6 board members that make up the SCU. And what's really great, people always wonder, okay, where are the scientists involved in the study of this subject? And the SCU has over 150 members, over 80 of which are what we call contributing members. So they're active. And of those 80, over half are scientists. Approximately 30% have PhDs. Over half have advanced degrees. So I'm kind of low on the totem pole, Dave. I just have a regular bachelor's of science degree in chemistry. I remember thinking about, do I want to go get a master's or a PhD? And at the time when I graduated, I looked on the newspaper and I said, okay, if I get a master's, I can make $14,200 a year. But if I get out now, I can make $12,800. So I did the math and I said, well, no need to get a master's. I'll just go get my money now. And so off I went and haven't really regretted it.
Don't blame me. And of course, everybody around here is very familiar with the knowledge of Science Bob McGuire. Dr. McGuire, retired from Virginia Tech University. Bob, you have and I have talked privately about the importance of SCU over the amount of time here. And I want to say thank you for joining us to make sure I don't look silly in front of these 2 brilliant men here.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here, Dave. It's an honor to be talking to these 2. And Robert is he's being a little modest because his work in nanotechnology and other areas would have easily earned a PhD in engineering or elsewhere. I mean, he's PhD level person, period. And I know we'll get into it, but his research report on the Aguadilla a UFO in Puerto Rico is just amazing. So, Robert's done extremely high level work, and it's his professionalism has made a major contribution to SCU. And I wish more people could see the SCU conferences. They would have no doubt it is extremely high level work.
Robert, I want to get to you. What was the importance of setting up a group like the SCU for ufology?
Well, the main importance, in my view, was I did not feel there was a group anywhere that it was truly science-based. MUFON wants to be science-based, but I wanted a group that was just purely science-based, and that's what the SCU is today. So, and I don't know if all your listeners have heard of, having what they call a secret college, where, because with all the stigma that's involved in the study of the UFO subject, a lot of your people with science backgrounds don't want to be involved. So it's great to see that more and more people today are not worried about the stigma, and that's starting to change. And I think that's very important. And I think 2 things have made that change. One, of course, is the December 2017 New York Times article on the Nimitz incident. But the other thing that's made it change is the discovery of thousands of exoplanets. And it makes people realize we are not unique like we thought we were only 30 years ago. So I think that has been a big change also.
And just let me add quickly, I think it is a major contributing factor to people's perceptions in and around scientific communities and endeavors that the chair of the astrophysics department at Harvard is now a major contributor to the overall area with Avi Loeb and his Galileo project. Now, I'm not sure how well Avi Loeb is going to aid us in kind of the things that most of the people in SCU want to do. I think he just wants to look for big rocks that are flying through the solar system from outside of our solar system. But it's a contributing thing because he really stirred up a lot of stuff with this Oumuamua.
Yeah, I think you're right, Bob. It's great to have a Harvard scientist, right, come forth and say we need to look at this subject, right? That's in the past you couldn't even get people to say they were willing to look at the subject. So I think that has been a big plus with the Galileo project.
Yep.
Paul, I want to bring you in here for a minute here because I want to get your opinion of the fact that, more scientists are starting to take this subject seriously. They're not poo-pooing it the way they normally did, as a bunch of rednecks out there, looking for satellites at night. So for you, seeing the scientific community start to shift and start to change in the wonderment that some way, somehow, we may not be alone in this universe or in this dimension, is it the younger scientists that are really starting to drive this forward, that we may not be alone, or let's be open to the study? Or is everybody collectively trying to come together and really take over this brand new phenomena that could really transform science of what we know today?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dave. The relationship between the study of UAPs, UFOs, and how it relates to academic, conventional scientific approaches. Generally, it's the ufology group that try and reach out to academia. So when I first met Robert and also Rich Hoffman, who's on the board of SCU, this was a MUFON conference in 2015, Irvine, California. And one of the themes of the conference was to engage with academia. So there was an attempt by MUFON, to reach out to academics to frame the conference for one of those goals. But of course, there weren't many academics there. I mean, I was there as part of my study, which is a social scientific study, to think about the role of UFO studies within society, relationship with academia. But it for over 6 years at least, a major organization, MUFON, was trying to link to universities. And then, of course, we had the New York Times article that Robert mentioned, which was, that was a major piece of news, first and foremost, for assigning names, dollar amounts to, previously pretty obscure studies by the U.S. military on UAPs. And then more recently, a lot of news buzz with the Pentagon report, which came out in June. Many people, liken it to a kind of a damp squib, like there wasn't too much revealed, there wasn't any big epiphanies in there. But I don't think that's the only take or read of that document. There's certainly a lot of interesting tidbits in there in terms of 143 out of 144 of these encounters which can't be explained. But what it does do is it essentially says the top U.S. military intelligence doesn't understand or can't assign a cause or explanation for a lot of these objects. And this will undoubtedly be picked up by academics, it'll be picked up by scientists, and this in turn is facilitating many of them to join the SCU. And the topic, like you say, Dave, it becomes less taboo, it becomes more open to serious inquiry, and in fact, it's going to be open to perhaps more funding in the academic realm. And this would be a key, hope for the SEU would be to facilitate data release, more openness towards serious scientific and academic study.
All right, Bob, you want to come on in?
I do. So I know that Robert and SCU have mentioned recently internally some organizing some people, groups, factors together to go after funding. But funding is the big deal. So the thing that I see coming on as a result of the language that is in the current National Defense Authorization Act, where it moves up into the Office of the Secretary of Defense, and all departments and all organizations associated with the Pentagon and DoD, including all of the intelligence agencies and so forth, need to report to that office all UAP activities, and also the demand put in that language, if it passes, becomes law, of reporting on all known events back in time. So there is no limit. At 2004, it goes backwards in time, and the order also is everything that's discovered about other countries collecting debris, vehicles, so forth, also must be included in these reports. So look, if that happens, I know what happens when you get a big office like that going inside the Pentagon. Funding happens. You get research dollars. Now, they may be classified research contracts, which is not unusual. I mean, I was the chief scientist of the Hume Center at Virginia Tech for 11 years, and 95% of our money was on classified contracts where we had an unclassified component for which students could get a degree. But the contracts themselves were classified. I can see that kind of thing happen. But once it happens, and once you start getting unclassified components published in journals based on that kind of funding, it will broaden, and the heyday will become big when the National Science Foundation, the Air Force Office of Scientific Research, the Navy Research Labs, ONR, and those entities give out grants to do work, because they are not tethered to a specific contract deliverable. They allow scientists, engineers, and so forth do research that is broad and can change with time as they make progress. When we get there, we will have reached the Holy Grail, and then the study of UAPs will be a scientific mainstream endeavor.
Absolutely, gentlemen. I want to get right back to the SCU for a minute. What is, so for our public, because we got about 6 minutes to go here before the break at the bottom of the hour, what is the goal of the SCU regarding UFOs? Is it the science? Is it to bring that science to the public? Or is it about culminating together to try and figure out the technology that is behind these UAP? Robert, let's start with you.
It's kind of all of those, Dave. I mean, we want to get the information to the public, and we want to engage mainstream science with the subject, right? I'm hoping it turns out like Bob was suggesting, and that there will be grants and money supplied to universities to work on this subject, and that it won't be reports that are always classified. And we don't get the information on them. Like Paul mentioned, 144 of those 145 reports, we don't have an explanation. At some point in time, there should be an explanation provided, and that it's hard to imagine that information needs to all be classified. You can explain why those other 144 either are terrestrial or are not, without violating, national security. So I think that's important.
Paul, I'm curious your opinion.
Yeah, so a big part of my role on the SCU, I was brought in to help facilitate the peer review process for the papers. So, SCU, which is first and foremost a think tank, multiple missions, elements to it that Robert talked about. one of the key goals is the dissemination of serious, rigorous studies. And so I've got a background in editorial roles with journals, book series, University Press with Nebraska. And so I kind of lend my expertise to make the peer review process, for which we get papers from SCU members, as objective and neutral as possible. So that means facilitating choosing the correct reviewers, going back and forth with the authors and the reviewers' comments. And so a key part then is to publish the papers which have been through a rigorous referee process. And so, again, this is all part of the SEU mission, is to try and use our collective skills and background to, disseminate scientific studies of the phenomena.
For those of us who don't know much about the SCU or the players involved, are a lot of the scientists and members on board involved in classified projects where they may have or may not have come in contact with any type of foreign material?
I'm not aware of anyone within the SCU who's engaged in a classified project or has had definite access to foreign material. I did do a paper which Paul's group peer-reviewed on the Ubatuba sample, which was from back in 1957. We basically did some what's called the high-res ICP-PMS testing to look at isotope ratios on that material. We weren't able to establish that it was non-terrestrial because of some of the techniques that we used. But we did establish that, as far as we could tell, the magnesium was terrestrial, but some of the...
We did it again. Verizon was just named America's most reliable network by RootMetrics for the 16th time in a row, proving once again that nobody builds networks like Verizon builds networks. That's why we're building 5G right. That's why there's only one best network, Verizon. Best and most reliable based on RootMetrics reports from second half 2013 to first half 2021 of 3 operators on all network types combined, not specific to 5G networks.
Expand your influence by adding high-quality music to your videos. Premium Beat tracks are produced by award-winning musicians at world-class studios. Plus, our license gives you tracks for a lifetime. Pay once and never again. Save 25% on your next track at premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast.
Trace elements is what we wanted to look at.
Okay. So when you're going through that, how does it work? How does someone join the SCU? What are the qualifications they have to bring forward in order to sign up for it?
Well, to join the SCU, if you go to our website, which is explorescu.org, on that site, you can find an application to join the SCU. And there's basically an application form, and you send in a copy of your resume. And that's basically the process. We have 2 basic categories of members. We have, members who initially join, and then we have what we call contributing members who actually provide some type of contribution to the organization.
Okay, so with that happening, does it matter what they have their education or their scientific background in?
Well, there are different ways people can contribute to the SCU, right? For example, we always need people who can edit, who can write articles, individuals who are good project managers. There are a lot of roles that are available that are not necessarily require a science type background. It is important to be able to just do critical thinking and logical thinking, but you can do critical and logical thinking, without having a science background.
All right, 1 minute to go, Paul. I'll give you the final word on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Robert's right. The point of SCU is because of the, this is evolving field of study with the reports being released and, the ongoing phenomena. A key part of it is trying to include many different kinds of people who can help with the project. And so this may include PhDs who want to play a very active role in some of the studies, or it may be more folks who can help with the publication process with the web page. So it's a fairly young organization, but we're seeking to grow and attract people who can help our mission.
Well, that is awesome, and I know we got to get Science Bob in there because he kind of likes the woo of the whole UFO aspect. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because that was a quick first half hour, and we are going to go into break here at the bottom of the hour. I am so excited about this show, and why? Because we have two members from the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, the SCU, Robert Powell. Three members. Sorry, Science Bob. All right, Paul Kingsbury from Simon Fraser University, my competition in Vancouver. And, of course, Science Bob McGuire. Gentlemen, we'll be right back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this. Well, this is one of those Sesame Street, one of these guys is doing his own thing. 3 SCUs and 1 meathead from Canada.
Yeah, I just looked you up, Bob. We accepted you back in summer 2020.
Yep.
That's what I was going to say. I think it's been about 2 years that Bob.
Yeah, a year and a half. So my goal is to become a contributing member in 2022, and I'm going to do a filtering and selection project, or how to filter out satellites, airplanes, and other things from observations, and give away code, open source code to do that with, and we'll be using ADS-B, orbital tracking software, and so forth. Because I've done all that stuff professionally, and it's just easy for me to do it. Write it up and then give it away to anybody who wants to use it in their observing equipment. I'll write that up and give it at the SCUR. So that will be one of my contributions to become a contributing member. I have other things I want to do. It's been a busy year since I joined, year and a half. My mother went into a nursing home. She got COVID, so forth and so on. It's just that one thing after another kind of slowed me down. But anyway, all of that seems to be going behind me.
Yeah. My buddy Pascal. Now, Paul, my friend Pascal, who has his Bachelor's of Science as well, this is a man that you would like to study.
Oh,
all right.
Yes. Yeah. So, off the air and off of YouTube, I will tell you some things that I know personally Pascal has done.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I remember the shout out that you gave to him, Dave. So, is he based in Quebec or?
No, he's in Lake Country.
Okay.
In between Vernon and Kelowna. But my own experiences that I have had are 100% the direct result of Pascal.
Interesting.
One of the first questions he ever asked me before I got into any of this was how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
Right.
And some of the experimentation that we tried, I always like to mention this one. This one sticks out so clear. He and I did this very unscientific study of sitting in a black room, completely black. He blacked out his window in this spare bedroom in his condo, and he blacked out all the lights in his condo, and then he sealed the door so that way there was no light coming in. Like you couldn't see your hand this far in front of your face. That's how black it was. And both him and I actually saw I'm going to use the word solar system appear between us in the room.
Wow.
And you could see little orbs flying off of it. I know this sounds completely woo, okay? But if God is my witness, man, and I'm saying God in front of 3 scientists, what the hell? Okay. But I'll put on my children's lives that it was one of the most incredible things I have ever seen. and it was incredible.
And was there an attempt to conjure up or to manifest?
It was complete meditation. Did it? Meditation, and this, like, literally, this solar system was spinning, and you would see these little orbs shoot off of it every now and again, and then spirits started coming in where I couldn't see his spirits, he couldn't see my spirits. And the one cool part about it was I remember putting my hand up in front of my face, and, you know, humans glow, right? I think we all know humans glow. I could actually see my hand glowing in front of my face, and I'm like this, and I'm like looking at my fingers luminescent. He couldn't see it, and he's three feet in front of me.
Every object in the universe glows, Dave. It's called black body radiation.
well, slap my ass again there, Bob.
Nice, Bob.
I got to keep him straight, guys.
I just like the woo. That's all I'm saying. You know, but I blame Pascal in a beautiful way. He is my guru, my mentor. He says here, thank you again for the super chat, Pascal. He says, numb the outer senses so that the inner senses open up. If that makes sense. I just sit there and take it. I'm his guinea pig. But because of him directly, we're coming back in like 20 seconds here. Because of him directly, I have probably seen 120, 130, 140 UFOs.
Wow.
Including a landing.
Wow.
I've been face-to-face with extraterrestrials twice. Like, while we're awake, none of this dream crap. Yeah, it's all because of him. Hold on.
Okay.
Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with exploring UFOs and science. With us tonight from the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, we have Robert Powell, Dr. Paul Kingsbury, and of course you all know Science Bob McGuire. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Good to be here, Dave.
Not a problem. I want to ask about UFOs, UAP. Okay, I know your terminology is UAP when you've got aliens. Like I always say, if you don't have aliens, it's never aliens. If you've seen extraterrestrials and UFOs, it's always aliens. And I just love saying that saying, as stupid as it probably sounds right now. But nonetheless, let's get into the scientific side of everything. Dr. Paul, what do you think UFOs, UAP are? Because that's one of the great debates going on right now.
Yeah, I think my first entry into that question would be to really emphasize the the unexplained, because essentially there's been many different kinds of encounters with this phenomena. And we know all the spectrum here between the nuts and bolts of sightings of craft which may leave physical traces in the landscape, to the the Whitley Strieber type encounters and abductions and so on. So there is a massive kind of range here, first and foremost. But what ties them together would be the unexplained. So before we kind of say what they are, their ontology, we first have to confront the fact that we don't have the knowledge. We are epistemologically uncertain about what they are. Now, of course, some people will be quite definitive in terms of their experiences. There will be, as we've seen with the Aquadia case, for example, very definite video recordings, tracking of various objects, and so on. But in the latter case, where there's been lots of, with the FLIR camera mounted on those jets, those Hornets, they still remain a sign or a representation. So we know that science demands an object which can be explained or is explained. Science demands repeated observations, measurability, prediction, falsifiable hypotheses, empirical testing, and so on. So that's why, as a field of study of UAPs, UFOs, they still remain with that letter U, the unexplained, and so we're still on that path of trying to explain and understand them. So that would be, I would have to answer that question with that first kind of emphasis on the U of the UFO or UAP.
Which makes sense, but, listening to Luis Elizondo, Paul, recently, the big debate that they seem to be having on their end, at least publicly, they're not sure if it's coming from space, from another dimension, from underwater, from inner Earth, from time travel, from the future. I mean, is this something you guys are debating as well?
Over beers. Yeah. I mean, look, the SCU is about doing observational science.
Yeah.
You got to gather a lot of data. You need to do observational science, but that means with discipline, with scientific discipline. That means your data has to be objective. It can't be tainted by your personal bias. You want to do everything you can to remove cognitive bias and make sure that everyone trusts your data so that later on, when we get 1,000 times more data, some reasonable theories can be constructed that present falsifiable hypotheses. Until then, we're all just gathering data. Look, you know me, Dave. I've had experiences, but I never claim what they are. Ever. I know that I've had these experiences, but they are not scientific theories. Experience is not a scientific theory. And I'm not going to try to guess what they are until I have a way to make a theory, which means enough data and some things I can test.
And here I would like to prompt perhaps Robert to discuss the Aguadilla case and that paper, which is a very extended paper. It's one of my favorite cases, and central to that paper is where Robert and others they engage their hypotheses that it's that object is a balloon or is it a lantern and so on. So, and the core of that paper is essentially rejecting these hypotheses, but in the conclusion there is still the conclusion is essentially we cannot explain the object, but it involves a very step-by-step rigorous analysis of the Homeland Security video footage. There's multiple witnesses, but Robert, why don't you just elucidate some of the dimensions to that paper?
Yeah, so kind of like Paul said, I mean, the very first thing we did was we verified the video was real, right? That's the first step. And we were able to do that by getting radar data and verifying with radar data that the plane, which was taking the video, was at the exact XY coordinates that the video claimed it to be. So then once we verified the video was real, then we began to examine the object and try to determine what it was not. So, could it have been an airplane? Could it have been a bird? Could it be a balloon? Could it be a drone of some type? And in order to examine those, we had to gather all the information on the object that we could. So it was like, does the object move behind something, which allows us to determine its exact distance. And once we know its distance, we can calculate its speed. So we did all of those. And in the end, we eliminated everything that we could possibly explain it with. Our closest explanation would have been a drone. But there were two things that a drone could not explain. One being the object coming back out of the water without any type of kinetic energy boost to get it out of the water. And the second being the object splitting in half. And actually, when we first saw that in the video, my first thought was not that it split in half. My first thought was, oh, there must be another object coming out of the water, and so now we have two. And what we did is we looked at it frame by frame. And the amazing thing was you could count the pixels, and you start off with an object that consists of 60 pixels with a heated center. And it frame by frame, it grew to 120 pixels. So it's doubled in size. And as it's doubling in size, you see the heat center growing. And then it just starts to pinch off and break apart, just like mitosis in a cell. And then the next thing you have two identical objects, both with their own little heat center, moving along. And that's not what we expected to see, but that's what the data showed us.
And what's fascinating there, we often put the woo on one side and the science on the other, but in the narrative, recalling what Robert just said, there is an extraordinary object here, which is being pixelated, and there's close-ups of those pixels, analyses of those pixels, and for me, this is the beauty of this case, is where the woo, or that which can't be explained, that which is beyond our comprehension, is actually visibly captured.
Okay, so for the fact that this case has been quite popular over the years, there's always a number of people out there that try to debunk it. Robert, why do you think this is a real series of, or a real case of UFOs or UAP, rather than people who've tried to debunk it?
Well, the one thing you'll always find with the debunkers, at least all the ones I've ever seen, is they never put out a paper on their debunking. There's no paper that starts off and saying, here's a video, here's what's happening, and this is why it's not valid. There was one guy who put out one which was a partial paper. It didn't cover the entire video. It basically covered the part to try to explain it as a balloon. But it looks at only a segment of what's going on. It doesn't explain how does the balloon disappear into the water, how does it come back out of the water, how does it split in half. It doesn't explain any of that, and this gets into way too technical, but when you look at the lines of sight to try to explain it as a balloon, that falls apart also. So there just hasn't been a good explanation for the Aguadilla video. And the explanations, I'll give you an example. Sometimes they'll say, okay, they try to explain that the object disappeared in the water. So their first explanation was, a cloud came in between, and so the cloud blocks the infrared. But the problem with that explanation is you can still see the ocean waves. So the cloud can't block the object and not block the ocean waves right below the object. So that fell apart. So then they come back with the next argument. So it's like, well, it must be that the camera just lost its ability to focus at that point in time, and so the object just disappeared because the camera lost stability. But then that falls apart because the object's moving away from you. So it's getting farther from the camera, and yet it suddenly shows back up as it comes out of the water. So all of a sudden, I guess the camera regained its ability to focus just in time to see it come out of the water. So it's I get where I don't even pay attention anymore to the debunking arguments. Most of them are not really sincere.
Science Bob.
And they really just look, if you have an ensemble of collected data around these events, you can't pick out this 1 second of 100 seconds of data and claim because you're 1 second of data.
Expand your influence by adding high-quality music to your videos. Premium beat tracks are produced by award-winning musicians at world-class studios. Plus, our license gives you tracks for a lifetime. Pay once and never again. Save 25% on your next track at premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast.
Experience gorgeous, lasting, high-quality hair color with Madison Reed. Find your perfect shade at madison-reed.com and get 10% off plus free shipping on your first color kit. Use code RADIO10.
Has a different explanation from the 100 seconds of data, you've debunked it. That's just not the way it works. The Aquadia UAP had a collection of events, all produced by an object that became two objects. It was transmedium. And for example, I mean, look, when the object enters the water is still in focus, both in the foreground and the background of that when it entered the water and when it came out, split in half. You just can't explain a tiny piece of the data and neglect all the other things that makes your explanation wrong. You just can't. It's just debunkers are not clear thinking logicians. And I'm a mathematician, and that's logic is what we do all day long. It's just you have to be logical, and you have to have a complete logical argument that explains all of the data and call it not a UFO. And just people don't do that. They don't ever do that. Never.
Okay, so what do we classify this as? Do we classify it as a UAP? Do we classify it as something else?
It's unknown.
Yeah, unknown.
I have no valid hypothesis for what that is, that I can give you any data to prove my conclusion. None. It's just one of the greatest studies of one of these objects that's ever been done. Robert and his team's work on that. It was just remarkable piece of work. It's just how it ought to be done.
Okay, taking that what Bob just said there regarding this is how it's supposed to be done, what if we look at older cases, whether it's Roswell, the Phoenix Lights? I mean, these are two cases outside of the DNI report that are really still driving people crazy in the United States. Not just ufologists, but other people who want to know about this. Paul, when we come to you on this one, we don't see a lot of talk about the history of a lot of these other sightings. And it's sad to say that 70 years later, Roswell is still prominent.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, Dave. We had a discussion board level about how to approach or assess papers that we received that would seek to engage, revisit historical studies. So while there's some of those classic cases, events in the past, there may still be new data that arises, new technologies that can analyze perhaps TV videos of, say, the Phoenix Lights, for example. Like a case, even though it's historical, is never quite dead because there's a potential new methods to approach the data. On the other hand, they aren't as immediate, or they may not have as granulated fine data as more recent cases, or compare the Phoenix Light camera footage compared to the Aquadia Homeland Security feed and radar data. So in the end, we would regard them as a different kind of approach, a different phenomenon because of their historical status. But you're right. The thing with these events is that they don't. It takes a while for them to leave the media kind of buzz, but they become classics. They become historical events, and that always feeds into people's present consciousness and thinking.
In Roswell, we have eyewitness testimony. We don't have data. We don't have radar. We don't have video. We don't have pictures even. So we have eyewitness testimony.
Very cool. How about for you, Robert? What about a lot of these elderly cases that we see going on? I mean, how important are they in today's ufology, considering that it's not even being talked about by anybody within Washington, D.C., Lou Elizondo or Chris Mellon, because those are the people who are being relied upon for information publicly right now.
Right. It's always good to understand the history of any subject and not look at only the current information. Although there are problems with historical cases because the witnesses are often dead, you can't regain your data. There is information in those historical cases. For example, one of the things I look for in an object to say this can't be terrestrial is that there is a speed or an acceleration that's demonstrated that's not explainable. There are many cases from the 1950s by United States pilots who were in jets and who see an object near them, and then within 2 seconds, the object is completely out of sight. And you can actually do the math work on that to determine how fast it had to move in order to disappear from human eyesight. And it's not just one case. There are many cases like that. That's similar also to what happened in the Nimitz case with Commander Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Slate. Those guys witnessed an object which was close to them disappear from sight within 1 to 2 seconds. And that allows you to calculate minimum speeds and minimum accelerations. And you can put error bars around that, right? Error bars based on human sight capabilities, the size of the object. And so you can say that acceleration is somewhere in this range. And if that minimum number is beyond terrestrial capability, then you've got an anomalous event.
I'll give you an interesting case. So the 1952 overflight of the U.S. Capitol, those objects that are caught on video, you can say this has to be at least this high above the Capitol. And so you can estimate the speed at which they're moving. And in those videos, you can't see any means of propulsion. They're moving too slow just to hang there, and they move off too fast later, and they have tons of radar return data. It's just completely unexplainable what flew over the Capitol in 1952 on 2 separate weekends.
Yeah. Another good example is in 1968 over a Minot Air Force Base. And actually a Frenchman by the name of Dr. Claude Poher wrote a paper on this. We have the actual radar photographs of the object near the B-52. And in one photograph, it's on the left wing, and the next photograph, it's off his right wing. And so you can calculate how fast that object had to move in order to go from one side of the plane to the next within one sweep of the radar. So there are a number of incidents. I'll give you another one that maybe I'm trying. Maybe Bob or Paul, you guys can remind me on this one. It was the Army guys helicopter back in 1974. It was Cohen. Can't remember the guys, but it was a National Guard group that were in a helicopter. They see a light far away, and then within 1 second, this light is suddenly a cigar-shaped object that's directly in front of their helicopter and beaming green light into their helicopter. Any object to become a pinpoint of light to suddenly just be standing right in front of you, that's an enormous speed, let alone the de-acceleration of stopping right in front of you. So there are many cases like that in history.
Very cool. Very cool. Gentlemen, we have about 2 minutes to go here before we got to go to break here at the top of the hour. We're talking SCU and UFOs tonight. The big question is, are we ever going to learn what a UFO is or a UAP is, Paul? Are we getting closer to that date? Never mind the fact that everybody is wishing on disclosure and waving the disclosure flag as quickly as they can, and whether or not the debate is if the government really does have crash retrievals. But do you think, just from a scientific point of view, we are closer to figuring out what these objects in the sky or the water are?
I think we are, because I think one of the consequences of the Pentagon report that came out in June is the assertion, almost admission, that the U.S. military can't explain these numerous encounters with these strange objects. I think the net result of that report, as I mentioned earlier, it will make the field of study more legitimate. And as Bob mentioned, I think dollar amounts, funding for this field is crucial to move the study further. So I think that can only help in terms of getting closer, as you put it, Dave, to the explaining the phenomena. I think alongside that, you also have the rise of citizen science. So since the internet, social media, there's the wider practices of science amongst citizens. It could be pretty rudimentary, counting various kind of animal species across forests or whatever, but merely with greater technologies in our hands with our devices, I think that may help gather more data. And it is one of the reasons that SCU was formed, was to be able to provide a viable area of study for any interested citizens gathering data. So my bet would be that we are getting closer to some kind of scientific explanation.
Wonderful. And that's good timing right there, Paul. I know you've done media before, and you know it's time for us to go to a break here at the top of the hour. We have Dr. Paul Kingsbury, Robert Powell from the SCU, and Science Bob from the SCU, and of course Science Bob and Friends here on Spaced Out Radio. We continue with the UAP talk when we come back for hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio. Right after this. Hold on. All right, we're clear.
It's amazing how fast time goes on this show. It's just always amazes me.
10 o'clock, yeah.
I don't ever worry about it because time just flies. We always have such a good time, Dave. I don't ever even look at a clock.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about with you guys here tonight. I am making it. No, I'm teasing, but
Robert's on at midnight. I think we're on for another hour. Is that it, Dave?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Another hour and a half there, Robert.
But never mind.
Okay.
You know, it just goes so fast you just can't even notice it. I mean, you've been on before.
Yeah.
Well, it's stimulating because I'm not getting sleepy, so that's a good thing, Dave.
No. So, Paul, can we talk about your studies?
Yeah. So
I mean, I don't know how much of the stuff you've done. I know you got
Yeah.
graduate students and so forth,
Yeah.
and I don't want you to screw up their publications, but I would like to hear some of your conclusions.
Yeah. So I'm essentially
I'm just going to hit the bathroom, guys.
At the paranormal investigation. So that's a wide.
No, I understand, but our audience would like to hear about that because of the way you're studying scientifically and so forth. They would be interested.
Yeah, I can talk. I got a journal article. I attended a crop circle conference in England, Sasquatch Summit in Washington. So yeah, I mean, it covers a lot of different objects, and the object will invite and demand different kinds of studies, right?
Yep. Well, the other thing I think we should emphasize is the three of us being in SCU as contributing or associate members is truly a multidisciplinary group.
Yeah.
And this problem is going to require the minds from all sorts of disciplines to make any headway. The other thing is, I mean, we have one of the greatest people in the world in SCU to talk about and discuss the potential methods for propulsion in Eric Davis. I mean, we just have a terrific group of people here. So it should be emphasized how broad the scope of interests that are in the group, from top-level scientists, top-level engineers. You're doing the social sciences and making a study of the kinds of people that are involved in you. This stuff is important. We have to look at this from all aspects to gain that, to get a real handle on it.
Yeah. Our science advisor, Sarah, will often say, interview data is still data. Like, even if it's, there's different kinds of experiences, of course, but even, firsthand testimony is still data, even if it's a sighting.
Since I was 20 and started doing real math, I'm a Bayesian. You do not throw away data, you weight it differently.
Yeah.
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 You don't throw it away, you weight it differently. And the nice thing about doing Bayesian training is you can jointly re-estimate the probability distributions along with making conclusions. And so the more data you get, the more you can do that. I mean, I've been doing this forever. I learned doing that stuff when I was doing cryptanalysis for NSA. It just was pounded into me to be this Bayesian since I was 20-something years old.
Yeah, so I'm just looking that up, Bob. So, so it's a way of describing epistemological uncertainty.
Yeah.
Through probability. Yeah.
Yep. And re-estimation. So look, typically the systems I've studied a lot were Markov models. We're not going to go into it, but there is a theorem that says that you can jointly re-estimate the parameters of your probability distribution and the expected values of your observations given the data, and you can jointly re-estimate. And under light conditions, the predictions always get better, even if you throw in trash data. I mean, it's just the right way to approach this problem because we don't have a choice. Because we're going to get this ratty, crazy data, and our hope is going to be that we get so much data eventually that the crappy stuff will filter itself out automatically.
Interesting.
We just got to take that approach. That's my opinion, right?
We've got about 90 seconds here, guys. Or make it, 90 seconds. I hope you guys are having fun, Paul and
this
Robert.
is good.
Yeah,
You're doing a great job, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That means a lot from you guys.
Yeah, no, it's excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Dave. I wouldn't hang out with you if you were a waste.
I'll be honest with you. I will be honest with you. Paul's a friend and everything like that, Bob. But I mean, I get intimidated by brilliancy. I really do, because I don't. I'm more into. I'm going to put it in a hockey term. Okay, you guys are the first line. I'm the fourth line scrapper. Okay.
That is not the way to look at it, Dave. But anyway,
hey, I'm
going to tell you. I can recall a freshman in a math class asking me the single hardest question I've ever had to answer in a technical talk I was giving. It's just you got the wrong ideas. Good questions can come from every direction.
True.
Nice.
Gentlemen, we're going to go here in about 10 seconds. I want to say thank you to all the super chatters. Really appreciate the love and support. Thank you to all the veterans who are tuning on in. You always have a safe home here at SOR. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. You just go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Xanthodont. Xanthodont is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as a clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on talking SCU and UFOs. Joining us from the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, Robert Powell, Dr. Paul Kingsbury, and of course you all know and are familiar with Science Bob McGuire. Gentlemen, thank you so much for going with us here. Over the next couple of years, because you guys have really been highlighted since the 2017 article when all of this story blew up on a journalistic and public level. But behind the scenes, here you guys are kind of doing the dirty work, looking into what the phenomena is, where it's coming from, what's it all about. Robert, what really interests you about this entire subject? Is it the technology of the craft or the potentiality of where it's coming from?
To me, Dave, it's the potentiality of where it's coming from. I mean, as a scientist, you have to be open. You know, there's all possibilities, right? We don't have the data yet to say where it's coming from. But if you look at the data we do have and the knowledge of all these exoplanets that we have out there, in my opinion, the extraterrestrial hypothesis is the leading candidate to explain it. Now that, like I said, you might get some data that would give you a different, support a different hypotheses. But the reason that excites me is because that indicates at some point in the near future, being decades probably, we might have first contact. And to me, that is such a monumental thing for the human race, right? That goes beyond nation states and nation state militaries. That's something that's for the whole world. And even if that's not what it turns out to be, just what limited possibility there is that is it, that justifies the work that's done and the excitement about doing it.
May I please ask a follow-up on that question? Because when we start looking into where is this technology coming from, whether it's in space, whether it's a different dimension, time travel, whatever, it opens up the fact of, are we...
In South Dakota, we're looking forward to exploring new roads and wide-open spaces. When you're ready to travel, go great places. Learn more at TravelSouthDakota.com.
Hello, beautiful. I'm Amy Errett, founder of Madison Reed, a hair color company I named after my daughter. Experience gorgeous, lasting, high-quality hair color made with ingredients you could feel good about, with consistent results every time. It's easy to find your perfect shade. Book a complimentary video hair color consultation with a licensed colorist on madison-reed.com and get 10% off plus free shipping on your first color kit. Use code RADIO10. That's code RADIO10.
Be alone in the universe. That opens up the whole idea, at least in my perspective, of ET contact and the experiencers that are out there. I know a lot of people have asked me leading into this interview tonight, Robert, whether or not the SCU will eventually take its research into the experiential realm.
There are a number of PhDs in psychology and sociology within SCU. So we have the manpower that could look at that, right? We just need to focus it on that area. But it can be done in a scientific manner, right? I mean, you can basically create an entire questionnaire that you would ask experiencers. You would look at, their backgrounds, then you compare them to a control group within the population and say, okay, are experiencers within, a certain psychological set, or are they no different than anybody else, right? So that's important things that can be done. Now, I'll also throw this out. I mean, I'm more of the nuts and bolts guys, right? So if someone says they've experienced it and they say they got an implant, well, I want the implant and I'll go test the implant. Right, so that's the way I kind of go.
Which makes sense.
But let's just suppose that you have a civilization that's thousands of years more advanced than us, right? And it comes by to visit. I would suspect that they have the capability of putting thoughts in your head to make you feel like you experienced something and there's no way you can tell whether you did or not. I mean, if that's implanted in your mind, then that's what happened to you. And for all we know, they could be running a giant sociology experiment on us, saying we're going to take 1,000 of these humans, implant this experience into them, and then let's just see how they interact with the other humans.
Right. Right, and I understand and appreciate that, but the majority of the UFO community believes or has this idea in their brains that the scientists, such as you three grand members of that club, really don't care about the experiencer, that the experiencer has been cast aside because we cannot prove anecdotal evidence.
Right. And okay, so from my viewpoint, for me, I don't have a background in psychology and sociology.
Right.
So I don't feel qualified to look at that aspect of it. Well, I think that rests with people who have more experience in that part of human nature.
Right.
Let me comment, Dave. No one in the scientific groups that we're talking about inside SCU would be more in need of actual funding to construct one of these questionnaires and put together all the computing resources and all this other stuff that would take to gather and analyze the data. So the scientists that would be doing that, especially if they wanted to get it into a peer-reviewed publication, they're going to have funding because they're going to want to bring in their graduate students while they manage the research activity, and all of that stuff is done together. And you can't, look, no bucks, Dave, no buck, Rogers. You have to have the funding to pay these people's way, pay their labs, pay their lab costs, pay their graduate students' tuitions, pay their graduate research assistant stipends. It's just money is the thing that we don't have now, that we are hoping, everyone in SCU is hoping, will change now that this has come out in the open.
And another thing as well, Dave, is there's different kinds of science as well, right? So there's, I would classify myself definitely as a social scientist. And so the data here isn't, the same as physics or chemistry. This is, interviewing people, collecting the words from the interviews. You can use programs to, look for key terms and patterns within their language. We have a science advisor on SCU, and she often always says, look, interview data is data. We can use this data information to analyze more carefully, rigorously a UAP case. It's a different kind of data, but nonetheless it can help further the field.
Very true. I want to get to a question here from Excalibur, who is asking, what type of telescope could validate the extraterrestrial hypothesis if we could track the craft leaving and coming to Earth? Paul, do you want to start with that one?
Well, then, so the validation there becomes, following these objects, these crafts. So I'm not an astronomer. I'm not really conversant with telescope technology. But the telescope would have to be able to do so reliably. It would have to be able to ascertain the propulsion systems, maybe the kind of materials that the craft is made of. It would also depend not so much on the kind of telescope, but rather the frequency and the behavior of the craft. So yes, we can improve with technology, but again, the object of study has to be conform to the criteria of scientific truth.
So I have a large telescope with all sorts of instruments, and I can tell you we can track, say, the typical UFO maybe to low Earth orbit, and after that we will not get enough photons back from it with any reasonable sized telescope that we could possibly track the thing leaving the atmosphere to even come close to say it was going to another system. We might see it a little bit outside the atmosphere, and that's it. That's just the limitations of our ground equipment.
Very cool. Very cool indeed. Okay. So, with the fact that these telescopes, do we need something up in space like another Hubble that is strictly for UFOs or looking for other planets and civilizations?
I promise you, if you gave Avi Loeb $1 billion, he would be happy to lead that construction. But it's $1 billion plus.
Yeah. Probably a more effective way would be to use our radar systems.
Yes.
Right. And what you would be looking for there is the trajectory of an object as it was leaving the atmosphere and the amount of acceleration and speed. So you would want to be able to determine that what you're looking at meets what you would expect from a craft that had capabilities of traveling interstellar. And of course, the problem with trajectory, though, is you're assuming they don't change their trajectory, which they could. So there's no guarantee there, but the strongest signal would be that the acceleration and speed matches what you would expect of an object that's going to travel outside of our solar system.
Very true. Very true. So for you guys, as you look towards trying to figure out where this is coming from or where it's coming from, Paul, I'm going to ask you in regards to the phenomena itself and where it is originating from. What is your best guess? Because it's all hypothesis right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm trained as a human geographer, and so I'm really appreciative of the role of regions and space and scale. And you may recall, Dave, we at the conference we met at, the New Paradigm Conference.
Yes.
Local skywatcher Charles Lamoureux, based in Vancouver. He's on YouTube with numerous videos. He talking about technology and telescopes. He spent a lot of money on equipment to try and catch, if you will, these sightings. And Charles is a big believer in the flap areas, or thinking of, so the question, where are they from? You have to think about, well, where do they appear? Where do they manifest? And so Charles, like many other researchers, noticed that there's a spatial concentration or flap areas where UAPs can be, they're observed, that we know that there's a temporal variation there. The sightings go up and down over the years and so on. So flap periods. So Charles is a big believer that there's something maybe on the Earth's crust or even bodies of water that may attract these UAPs. I'm a big fan of the work that was done in Hessdalen in Norway, where there was, this is a good example of academic, scientific and local citizens project in the Hessdalen Lights during the 1980s, and there's some really interesting data there. Essentially unexplained, but the recurrence of lights in that area again suggests a kind of regional geography to the phenomena. So it's really important to think about the geography of the sightings as well.
Yep.
Bob, your opinion?
Okay, so a thing that I think we should bring up why people want debris. I think we should bring that up. So if FCU got its hands on debris, what are one of the things it would look for? Okay, so we know because astronomers look through their telescopes at stars all over. Let's restrict ourselves to our galaxy right now. The materials that make up the stars and the solar system that they have around them are different from one star to another. And the atomic fusion, the nuclear fusion that goes on inside those stars, and the materials that came together to make those stars and those planets, they have different makeups. And we can look at the light coming from those stars and tell lots of things about their different makeup. So where am I going with this? We know from observing those stars that they have some elements in them. So let's grab a bunch of debris. How do I know that it didn't come from our solar system? Well, our solar system, we pick up pieces in meteorites or Earth or Mars or wherever, and we look at them inside the laboratory, And we know that different isotopes of the atoms that make up these materials have different weights. So we weigh the different atoms, and we know that in materials that are around our sun and came together to make us, there's so much percentage of one type of carbon, and so much percentage of another type of carbon, so much percentage of one type of manganese, iron, all metals, etc. And if we see a material at which these different percentages of different weight atoms are drastically different, I mean really, really different, the ones that are found from around our sun, it likely came from somewhere else. It'll just be another piece of evidence that came from aliens.
Well, let's talk about metamaterials and different types of materials that are out there. If there are materials on this planet, which people like Luis Elizondo claim, Robert, I'm curious for you, if you got your hands on these metamaterials, what are you looking for?
Well, you're looking for two things. One is what Bob just explained. And that was a great explanation, Bob, the way you did it. I've made it where everyone could understand it. So that's one, which is your isotope ratios of your elements. And then the second is you would use what's called a TEM, which is a type of scanning electron microscope. And you would look at the grain structure of the atoms, layer by layer. That would be the other thing you would look at.
So Hal Puthoff's favorite piece of debris is this layered bismuth and magnesium, and we have no idea, period, how that could be manufactured. I mean, that's the number one thing that has all these people interest in Hal's Arts Parts metal, is that no one knows how it's manufactured. It's very, very thin layer of magnesium, very, very thin layer of bismuth, alternating, stacked up together, and no one knows how you could manufacture that, or even why such a thing would be manufactured. And it would be ridiculously expensive to manufacture it given the current Earth technology. So that's why everybody's interested in figuring out what the heck is going on with Arts Parts layered bismuth magnesium from Linda Moulton Howe and Hal Puthoff. That's why there's an interest. We need to do more of those kinds of studies of the materials we have and look at other evidence.
Dr. Paul, I want to bring you in here for a second. When we get into geography and everything like that, how important is it to get to some of these areas where we believe there's been potential crash sites? Because we know that when the military goes in, they're taking all the big pieces if they get their hands on it first, but there's still going to be smaller pieces, maybe even microbial, that could be there for us to detect. Do we look at the whole subject, Paul, in regards to trying to get the SEU or somebody in those areas to go to those potential crash sites for investigation?
Yeah, so to turn to a historical case, I'm actually, this is under review right now with the SEU, but there was the close encounter to the CE2 case in Delphos, which was in the state of Kansas, I believe. It was back in the early 1970s. And so you had witnesses seeing a luminescent craft hovering above pretty close to the ground. And in this instance, there was illuminated, aftermath on the soil, which was observed. So this makes it the close encounter to for Hynek. It leaves a trace with the surrounding landscape. So there, the access isn't so much the materials, but it doesn't involve a crash, but it does involve a trace element from the craft. So the author, Errol Farouk, is currently providing his updated interpretation of the soil sample data that he did back in 1977. So again, the problem is talking about materials of UAPs. George Knapp likes to go on and about the unobtainium, because the essential substance of the craft is always out of reach, and this in a sense defines the unexplained, the object. So in terms of catching up with crash sites and debris, I mean, again, it's the data, the testing, the small trace samples that are. It's very difficult to obtain credible data or samples. I know that MUFON put a lot of stock in their field investigator responses and so on, but I so far I don't think that has been a break open case.
All right. How about for you, Robert, with going to these crash sites to see if there is any unclaimed materials that could be out there? How big of a clue would this be for dissecting the materials of these potential craft?
Well, I mean, the example that Paul gave is for trace materials. And it sounds like you're asking, Dave, an actual physical craft that has crashed. That would be a wondrous thing to have your hands on. As far as I know, there's never been a physical crash with material like that. The only thing we've ever gotten is either a claim of a small piece of a craft, such as an Ubatuba, or trace materials such as in Delphos, Kansas. That's as close as we've gotten. My personal view is that if there ever was a crash, that whoever crashed there, their comrades would be there to pick up the remains within a very short time. I mean, that's what we would do, right? If something happened, with a spaceship, if we were over Mars and we're a little more advanced and developed, we're not going to leave it there. So
Very true.
I guess I don't have a lot of hope that we'll ever get something like that. Here's kind of the example I like to think of, Dave. When we're trying to get this kind of information, it's like you've got the professor in the laboratory, and he's got these rats, and he's running experiments on them. And it's like we're the rats, and we look up at that professor and we go, I need to get some data on that guy. I mean, there's some problem to start with right there.
Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we do have to go to a break here at the bottom of the hour. Man, this show is flying on by. Science and UFOs from the SCU, Robert Powell, Dr. Paul Kingsbury, and Science Bob McGuire. We continue with the scientific talk, and maybe we'll throw in a few of your questions when we come back on Spaced Out Radio. You know what's really ridiculous, Science Bob? I was so pumped up for tonight's show, I actually wore pants.
Oh, that's a newbie.
I know.
But look, I'm telling you, this is the fastest the clock has ticked on any one of these shows I've ever done with you.
Yeah. Robert, the point that I was getting at is I have had this dream idea of taking an underwater submersible, and much like what the Discovery Channel did with the Blue Hole of Belize,
Shag Harbor.
and go down to Shag Harbor.
Yeah.
Now, outside the great white sharks that are now living there, and I'm telling you right now, I'm not going because of them. All right? I really do believe that there could still be something there. And I think that is a real big point. Now, sure, it could have moved from currents or crustaceans carrying pieces off, but I really do believe that there could be some, if that crash actually did happen, and there was hundreds of witnesses to that, I really believe that there could be some sort of material or chunk still down there 50 years later.
I mean, it's always possible.
Yeah, we need the money for the submersible.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you, I called my submarine guy. Yeah, I have a submarine guy. Holy cow, right? But apparently that company is now closed.
Ah. People that see my Twitter stuff and all that stuff, they see me on the the conning tower of the USS Hampton. And I don't think anybody's going to take a 435-foot long.
We did it again. Verizon was just named America's most reliable network by Root Metrics for the 16th time in a row, proving once again that nobody builds networks like Verizon builds networks. That's why we're building 5G right. That's why there's only one best network, Verizon. Best and most reliable based on Root Metrics reports from second half 2013 to first half 2021 of 3 operators on all network types combined, not specific to 5G networks.
Experience gorgeous, lasting, high-quality hair color with Madison Reed. Find your perfect shade at madison-reed.com and get 10% off plus free shipping on your first color kit. Use code RADIO10.
Los Angeles class attack submarine and go look. So, Dave, we need something a little smaller than that.
Well, Pascal has a good comment here. He goes, do a group of remote viewers. But you could test the remote viewing theory, and if you had the submersible, to go get it from there or see if it's there.
Nice.
If you have the submersible, there's a big if.
Yeah, but if you could get Discovery Channel to pick this up,
where the thing went down at Shag Harbor is not that deep, so it's not going to take the world's greatest submersible.
No,
but it is going to have to be maneuverable.
No, but they do have horrible currents in that area.
Yeah, I know that, and that's the reason I think most of the debris is distributed halfway across the Atlantic.
There's only one way to find out.
But there's it'd be great if there was one piece the size of a softball that we could get hold of. Boy, we could do a ton of tests.
Oh yeah, just give us a pound of it.
Oh yeah, do an isotopic ratio test and find it can't have come from the solar system. That would be lovely.
I really do believe, gentlemen, that outside of what the United States military may or may not have, that is the only place that we could really do scientific study on a public level. That's it. And
I think there are a few others that, look, no matter how hard the military or whoever tried, if there was a crashed vehicle, there is stuff left behind. And so there are multiple sites that you could go to, I think, and still find debris if a crash happened.
Paul, another interesting place would be, about 7-8 years ago, where there was that alleged crash in Lake Winnipeg on the First Nations grounds, because a lot of the First Nations say that when the military showed up, they literally shut down and shut up all of the elders in that area.
Ooh. Wow. That's interesting. I just jotted that down. That is 7 years ago. Roughly.
Yeah. Let me get.
How in the world did they do that? Given the current way Canadian relations is with First Nations, how do they shut them down? They're autonomous.
Yeah, it was. It was in 2015 called the potential Jackhead crash. So what I'm going to do here, Paul, is in our stream here, if you look on the right, you'll see private chat. I'm going to put the link to the story there for you to grab it.
Got it. Thanks. Appreciate that.
We've got about 30 seconds. I want to say thank you to Cat Chaser, Black Dragon, Swampy, Tim, Science Bob, Sinister Vax, Excalibur full ×2, Carl, Cosmic, Pascal ×3, Kira, Aussie Steve, Alicia, Dirty Filth, and Teresa for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And a big thank you to all the veterans out there who are tuning us in and watching live. We love you, and thank you so much. You always got a safe home here at Spaced Out Radio. And, of course, to all our regulars, we love you. Here we go with the second half of the show. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Science and UFOs, it's a big hot topic debate tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Joined from the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, we have Dr. Paul Kingsbury, Robert Powell, and of course you're all familiar with Science Bob McGuire. And I want to start this next segment off with a question from Solar Warden here, because earlier in the last half hour we were talking about telescopes. And he is asking, gentlemen, isn't the premise of what NASA was doing in the 90s with the STS missions, the Tether incident, brackets, cosmic ruler, and all their infrared footage with respect to tracking? Robert, do you want to take that one, or Paul?
Go ahead, Robert.
Robert's going to have fun parsing that.
I'm not sure on that one. I mean, as far as I know, NASA has not done work trying to identify, UAPs leaving our atmosphere. That's about all I could comment on that one.
Okay, but that does open the door to a little bit of the conspiracy talk, because you guys are looking for hard evidence. You're looking for stuff you could scientifically work on. At what point do you start to try and blend in the potential, I'm going to use the word conspiracy, of what is being covered up and what isn't regarding this topic? Because there's a real fine line there of what the government says they don't know and what they do know. We've seen it before. I mean, look at ATIP. ATIP never existed until it came out in 2017. People heard about it. People thought it was there, but Lou Elizondo never existed. None of these people investigating this existed. So it's opened up the world to kind of blend, in my opinion, science with the conspiracy field of some of these what sound like outlandish stories that are turning out to be potentially true. So how do we combine that then, gentlemen?
I guess on conspiracy theories, if you look at time going along, right, from the 1940s to modern day, and you say, okay, is there some secret organization that has been conspiring to hold all this information in the United States for all this time? And I'm confident the answer there is no. Is there maybe an organization which in the last 15 years has been collecting UAP data? And I would say maybe. I'm not sure. If that organization exists, it wasn't ATIP. I think ATIP is not an organization that was gathering the really good data. I think those guys got scraps from wherever they could garner them. I think, unfortunately, I think most of the time through history, as you move across history, you have incidents where someone gathers data and maybe they throw it into a corner and dispose of it. I'm more of the notion that it's human lack of a proper handling of information that's been happening. That it's, I guess you might say, incompetence is, I think, what we've been dealing with more than a conspiracy theory. And in the example that kind of puts it in a nutshell, I had a guy who on a Navy ship who I was interviewing him, and he was telling me about a disc-shaped object that was following their cruiser. And he said they had all hands on deck. And at the end, the object left, and he went to the captain of the ship. And he said, "Should I put this in my log?" And the captain looked at him and said, "No, I would like to make admiral someday." I don't think that's a conspiracy. I think it's our human nature And because it's such a taboo subject, and that captain does want to get promoted, he figures that is not going to help his chances to report there was a UFO sighted any more than it would help his chances to write in the logbook, "We saw a ghost at 2 a.m. last night go across the front of the desk." He's going to say the same thing. Don't put that in my logbook.
Yeah. Well, look, I think Paul has been involved in study of these kinds of communities, where whether they're cryptid, whether they're UFO, whether they're paranormal, etc. And I'm sure that in his research activities, he's come to some conclusions about these communities. Paul, why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so thanks, Bob. Part of the wider study, which I conducted, rigorously, field work, going to conferences, fieldwork sites, was looking at paranormal investigations and the live spaces, geographical term. So that was looking at Sasquatch, Bigfoot research, conferences, field sites, UFO, working with Charles Lamoureux, and then later joining SCU, and also the ghost investigators as well, and crop circle researchers. And each of these fields, though under the title of paranormal, they each have their own kind of practices, theories, geographies. I think one of the aspects of the study, no academics really interviewed or studied real live paranormal investigators. It was always through the mainstreaming of the paranormal investigations on TV, Ancient Aliens, Finding Bigfoot on these educational channels, History Channel, Animal Planet, and so on. And so that was one of the hooks for my research contributions, looking at real on-the-ground people and so on. But I think this mainstream of paranormal research, unexplained object research, if you will, that someone actually mentioned in the chat box there on the show, Dave, it has gone mainstream. And in many ways it's gone mainstream is because the trusted entities, these large entities, be that governments, science, universities, have become in the past decade or so under greater suspicion, or they've become fragmented, if you will, in terms of their the way they disseminate information through social media. So there's been it's easier for people today to tap into their kind of online communities with their own theories, with their own knowledge systems, as a result of how knowledge is transferred through essentially through the internet. And so you get the rise of different groups of theories. And I think of course, conspiracy theory has been aligned with UFOs for a long time. Government secret agencies, the veiling of knowledge, dissimulation of knowledge, and so on. And I think that it's a wider part of how society is now working, where there are more and more people or different groups with their own kind of theories, particularly in terms of how information is being occluded from them, hidden from them. So I would side with Robert and echo with Robert. There's only so much you can do with conspiracy theories from a scientific point of view, but they do evince how information emerges over time. There's going to be discoveries of certain datas and so on. There could be leftovers, byproducts of certain studies. But I think it has to be incorporated or taken seriously in terms of how we understand the possibility of studying UFOs and the various entry points into the phenomena.
Very true. Go ahead, Bob.
No, I was just going to say, I think if we want to study UFOs, if we want to study it in terms of our culture, these kind of sociological and other studies need to be done, and how the current culture, the current context, whether it's political or sociological or whatever, impacts how these things are perceived. And there, as Paul was alluding to earlier, indirectly, let me just go directly. There are a lot of people in our current culture that think people at universities, scientists, and engineers are elitist. And so they're not part of the elite crowd, so we are distrusted because we are elitist. And it's kind of a fundamental misunderstanding, and I deeply regret that many people feel that way because it harms them. Their belief that scientists and engineers are elitist is harmful to them in many ways. And so but we need to understand that if we are to understand how a group of people get together, believe in conspiracy theories, and they may have valuable data, irrespective of whether they believe nonsense or whether it's real. Whether it's nonsense or real, we need to understand how all of those beliefs impact their collection and transmission of data, which might be useful if we're ever going to be able to work with them. And we can't have them thinking we're being elitist. We just have to have them thinking we want to understand the data they have, and we have to collect it in a way that makes sense for us to do analysis on it. That is as elite as I think most scientists would be. Is we need to collect it in a way that's useful.
Where do we get the evidence from, though? I mean, it sounds like such an illogical question, but coming from somebody like myself who really doesn't understand the full scientific aspect of the phenomena, how do we get that evidence? Where do we find it? The government's not going to hand it over. We can't trust anecdotal evidence. How do we get there? What's the bridge?
No, that's a very good question, Dave.
Great question.
Yeah. The problem, right, is that we know the military does, even though I don't believe in conspiracies per se, we know the military does have some very good information that we can't get our hands on, right? And probably the best data, I think, that's probably out there is controlled by NORAD, because they have radar capability that can see an object the size of a baseball out to 5,000 miles from the Earth. So if there's an object that leaves Earth's atmosphere and goes out into space, they're going to know about it. So to your question, how do we get the data? I think I've finally decided that the only way we really get it is if Congress appropriates the money for universities to begin to study this question, so that you take it out of the military sphere and you put it in the academic sphere. And then I think we will have a much better chance of getting an answer.
And the other thing is, in the military sphere, you're going to use instruments whose very existence and how they work is classified. And since their data comes through a classified system, the data itself is stamped classified as the system is until it's been washed. And when you wash data, that really taints it to most scientists. It's not as useful for analysis. So I'm with Robert. If we're going to win, we have to get it out of the military and into the scientific establishment where university professors and their students are allowed to conduct research.
Yeah, to echo Robert, that's a great point about the links between military and universities. I mean, in my discipline, geography, there's been a very close link between geography. Back in England, late 19th century, geography was used for imperial expansion, geopolitical concerns with Europe and so on. So there has been precedence here with geography, which actually continues today. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to make sure you had the final word on that. One of our listeners, Rather, is in here. He says, great discussion. Thank you, guys. Is ufology still a philosophical issue? He says, I think it is just starting to get a place where science can analyze it, and that's what's driving current events. Paul, let's start with you.
Yeah, great question. So, I attended the MUFON conference in 2015 in Irvine, California, and then I attended the International UFO Congress in Scottsdale, Arizona in 2016. My first findings from these conferences were were two main things. One, it is an extremely diverse, heterogeneous field of study. So at these conferences, you would have presentations by my colleague and friend Robert Powell, taking a very scientific approach to the topic. You would have, on the other hand, the experiencer sessions. This would be the closed group sessions where people have had encounters and would narrate their experiences and share it amongst the group. So you would have a very diverse range of approaches to the topic, which would count it as certainly in a kind of philosophical sense. But I think with SCU and the emergence since 2017 of the public release, at least, of the UAP videos, it can get to a place where it's more approachable through science. The second observation of these conferences, they are very similar to traditional orthodox academic conferences. I'm going to argue in the book I'm working on is that a UFO conference, be it MUFON or the IUFOC, these are essentially places of learning and teaching. You get people coming together, I would say, in most of them in a very earnest manner, committing to trying to get to the bottom of their relationship to the UFO, be that experience or observation. Robert can elaborate on this, but people will come up to Robert after some of the talks in those conferences with photographs and seeking answers. But like academic conferences, there'll be these late-night theory debates in the hotel lobby bars. People will be very passionate towards it. There'll be different factions, tensions, just like academia. Okay, it's a different object of study. It's very elusive compared to a lot of mainstream science objects, but I'm going to argue, like echoing the attempt Bob was talking about, to try and break down the mistrust about elitism of scientists, but also trying to I hope to show the earnestness and dedication and indeed credentials that are now growing in the field of UAP studies.
Let me thank you, Rather, for the question, and just let me give a quick plug. Rather sits with the Unidentified Celebrity bunch, and they interviewed Tim McMillan and Gary today, and people should go give a listen to that interview. It was really interesting.
Gym sessions and sweaty summer activities are back, which means more funky smells in your clothes, because sweat leaves behind bacteria that causes those hard-to-remove odors. Clorox fabric sanitizer products are ready to zap the stink out of fabrics in your home by getting rid of 99.9% of odor-causing bacteria. Eliminate odors in every load, or sanitize fabrics between washes with one of our fabric sanitizer products. Search fabric sanitizer at Clorox.com to learn more. When it counts, trust Clorox. Use as directed.
Own the road with T-Mobile, the leader in 5G. Whether you're cruising through Nashville on I-40, heading down I-90 to Boston, or touring Santa Cruz in the 5, you'll be covered by the largest 5G network. T-Mobile covers the most interstate highway miles in America with 5G.
See 5G device coverage and access details at T-Mobile.com. Most reliable according to independent third-party Umlaut from crowdsourced user experience data from January to July 2021. Fastest according to Open Signal Awards based on average speeds in USA 5G user experience report July 2021.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Rather, for the question.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up, Bob. We like those guys over there. So.
Oh, we really do.
Yeah. So Rather has a nice shirt and tie combination usually going during that show as well. So, that's just the way it is. Gentlemen, as we continue on here, we got about 5 minutes before we got to go to break already at the top of the hour. Getting back to the whole evidence study of everything. And I asked you where you're going to get your evidence from. What is evidence? What can we use today that is evidence, Paul? Is it photographs? Is it video evidence because we have no, as far as we know, trace material in the public's hands? Is it the experiencers and their woo-filled stories of anecdotal evidence? Where do we get our evidence from to move forward?
Well, I think it would be a mistake to rule out certain kinds of data not counting as evidence. Evidence points towards some kind of phenomena. It may help with explanations and so on. So for my part, I would be open to all kinds of evidence. The step, however, is to ensure the credibility of the evidence, the proper analysis of the evidence, and with this wide range of the kind of data sources we've talked about, that takes specialized folks to interpret it. I hope to be reaching out, especially since the pandemic. Now we're in person on campus, reaching out to scientists at Simon Fraser University, to actually take a look at our SEU papers, particularly from the point of view of ballistics, the motion of the objects, and analysis. So I think the question is having the people who are qualified to interpret the evidence as well as determining the veracity of it.
True. Robert, your thoughts?
I think for getting the evidence, there's two ways to look at it. One is what we have been doing, which is what you might call inductive reasoning. In other words, you collect UFO reports and you get this data and you try to make a hypothesis out of it. And many scientists have a problem with that because they don't trust the data. But now things have changed so that we can also now use deductive reasoning. Deductive is kind of the opposite of that. In that case, we take information we know. We know there are thousands of extrasolar planets, right? And so then you start deducing, what does that mean? So if there are thousands of these planets, and if we make the assumption that there is extraterrestrial intelligent life on some of them, right? And then if we use our own society as an example, we already are almost capable of detecting the atmospheres around a planet. A civilization a few hundred years more advanced than us, they would be able to look at our planet, not only see our gases in the planet, they would detect the hydrocarbons that we have emitted. They would know that's not normal. And on the dark side of our planet, they would be capable of seeing that there's a peculiar incandescent light that's being emitted every night across the entire face of the planet. So they would know that we exist. So in deductive reasoning, you start off by saying there's thousands of planets, there's intelligent life, they know we're here. The only question left is, can they get here? So then science says, okay, let's make some hypotheses. If they came here, where might they be? And so you're already seeing papers being written in the scientific community saying, what if they have a space probe sitting out in the asteroid belt looking at Earth or wherever? So there are actually papers now looking at what should we examine in order to determine if ET is in our neck of the woods. And so this is all done without using any UFO reports. That's purely from what we can deduce from what we know are facts.
And the same thing with things that are inside our atmosphere and our water. So one of the reasons we don't want to rely on the military is, what are we going to get if we just keep doing what we're doing outside of the military? We're going to get a bunch of crappy cell phone videos, because almost no one will point a camera of any quality and take pictures. So we need to figure out ways to add other data in concert with these videos. Like, I have this passion about doing passive radar and spectroscopy and all these other things. So what I'm saying is adding lots more data that we can get with inexpensive instruments gets us a lot further along than looking just at crappy videos, because of exactly what Robert just said. We can begin to do deductive reasoning by saying, I saw this thing and I got a crappy video, but I also got all this other data. And from it, I can deduce the following facts. And these following facts, you hope, are enough that you can say, that wasn't made by any technological entity on the earth that I can think of, for example.
Bob, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. Hour 3, The first half hour, we have our great panel from the SCU, Robert Powell, Dr. Paul Kingsbury, and Science Bob. Then at the bottom, let's get to the UFO report, the news, and the thought of the day. Third hour, Spaced Out Radio is next. All right, we're clear.
How many people think that Cheyenne Mountain is ever going to release data that lets us look at fast walkers? Zero.
Exactly.
We're going to have to do it ourselves, or it's never going to get done.
Yeah. And, the thing I thought, Bob, also, I'm not even sure if they're aware that they have the data because...
Oh, they're aware. I can tell you. I can tell you for a fact they're aware.
Because I figured there might be algorithms, so that they were looking basically for ICBM satellite.
So the data is in the database, but their matched filtering for picking out things of interest excludes it all and just leaves it in the dirt pile.
Well,
so the things we're after are outside of the matched filter, and they do that matched filter because they don't want false alarms.
Right. But what I was wondering was, do they have anyone who goes into the dirt pile and looks for?
So if you read Chris Mellon's blog on the TTSA about all the systems the government has that could look, I think the logical inference is that nobody's actually doing it, and that's because nobody is paying them to issue reports about UFOs to anybody. They're probably being ordered not to look at that data and filter it out. But every person that's ever been inside Cheyenne Mountain knows about fast walkers.
Yeah, you would think once they knew about fast walkers that they would go looking for them rather than
I'm telling you, the culture has been don't talk about it.
Yeah. It's amazing. That's what I meant by the word incompetence across time. It's like,
it's been a very competent shutting down of discussion. That's been very competent.
My favorite example is always Hogan's Heroes.
Yes.
You guys have probably seen that one. And I love Sergeant Schultz because he goes, I see nothing, I hear nothing.
I see nothing.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yes.
You got that right.
That's how we dealt with this issue.
Oh, yeah. That's the Sergeant Schultz method of UFOs is how the government has in general handled it, except if they have some study committees that have. Oh, but look, Harry Reid claimed that he know there's SAPs that have really interesting stuff in it, and he believes he can name the corporations where things are being held now. I mean, he got on TV and said all that, and he was in the Gang of Eight and privy to everything.
I just want to hit you guys up with one thing, because we've covered a lot tonight, as this has flown by. Is there any topic that we haven't hit yet that you guys want to cover?
Yeah, you're right, Dave. We've
what upcoming SCU events should we brag about?
Well, that we could do at the bottom of the half hour before we go.
Okay, right.
But
we can talk about our next conference.
Yeah.
There's a good question in the chat room. Does Canada have any jurisdiction or rights to the NORAD data due to their role in NORAD?
As far as I know, no. And I have a little bit of it information. I think I told you this story, Paul. Bob already knows it. But every Canadian person who calls in a UFO to the United States or to the RCMP immediately has all of their information filed to NORAD.
Mm-hmm.
So their name, phone number, everything you give the police that they ask for on the report. So every Canadian who has filed to the RCMP, literally NORAD now has all your info on it.
Look, Dave, Canada and the United States form a military alliance for the detection of airplanes flying from Korea and Russia and China over to the United States, missiles and airplanes. So that makes sense, given that we are working together, that NORAD, which covers the entirety of North America, has all that data so they can make predictions as to whether or not we are being fired upon. So that makes sense. But the real question is, does Canada ever get to look at that data before it goes into a final report? And I don't know. I don't know the answer.
As far as I know, NORAD will scramble the two CF-18 Hornets to try and intercept the craft. That's what I know.
I believe it.
And so that strictly comes from NORAD. And the part that bothers me is the Canadian people have no idea that their personal information is in the hands of the U.S. military. That's what bugs me about it. You know, maybe it doesn't bug other people. It kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Well, I mean, you guys have an Official Secrets Act, right?
I don't know. We're Canada. They don't tell us anything. Give me 1 second. I just got to close my window here.
I bet they inherited the OSA from Britain.
A lot of things.
Make sure my bear doesn't come sniffing in.
But, Dave, at least in Canada, you don't have the Patriot Act.
we have Bill C-51. That's Canada's version, Bill C-51. Hold on, gentlemen. Thank you to Snakes, to Mike, Excalipurful ×2, Teresa, Pascal ×3, Dirty Filth, Alicia, Ozzy, Steve, Kira, Cosmic, Carl, Sinister Vax, Bob, Tim, Swamp, and Black Dragon and Cat for the super chats tonight. Thank you to all the veterans and regulars tuning on in. Here we go with Hour 3, everyone.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight, a show that is flying on by. We appreciate all of your listener support. If you're tuned on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Just go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Xenodont. Xenodont is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as a clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Check out our new swag as well. And, of course, follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, UFOs and science. Is there such a thing? Well, of course there is. And we got the men to prove it tonight from the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies. We have Robert Powell, Dr. Paul Kingsbury, and of course you all know Science Bob from Science Bob and Friends. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Good to be here, Dave.
It's been a good night, Dave.
It has been.
Fast night. Way too fast. And we've covered a lot of topics tonight. But, gentlemen, one of the topics that always comes into play is the military, whether it's up here in Canada, whether it's in the United States, the United Kingdom, and what are the secrets that they are holding. Never mind the fact that it could be crash retrievals, it could be aliens. We can only hope, for me at least, because that equals woo. But for you guys, you know, we see a lot of reports coming out. And earlier in our chat room during the break, John had asked about NORAD and what role they play, whether it's in Canada or the U.S., for information regarding UFOs. How do we, as a scientific community, break into that militarized area where the secrets are so secretive, some of them don't ever see the light of day? Is that even possible?
Only if a bill passes the Congress and is signed by the president to make it happen, because they're under National Security Act. Period. That's the end of it.
Well, I guess that was a short-lived question.
That's it.
Thanks, Bob.
Because they are under
that.
the National Security Act, and the President of the United States can't order them to violate the National Security Act because that's an unlawful order. It'd have to be the Congress pass a law and the president sign it.
Now, this may be a follow-up question that you may not be able to answer, but we talk about it quite a lot here on the show. And it may not do with the hardcore science of everything, but more the philosophical side. Does the SEU ever discuss the problems that may come about any type of disclosure? Because we have half of this planet's billions of population who still believe and pray to a religious deity where anything coming from space is demonic, could lead to Armageddon. Yes, that's the religious side. We have a lot of people out there who are concerned about whether or not this is going to affect the world markets, from oil to the financial Federal Reserves. We have people who are wondering on whether or not this is going to affect everyday people. COVID has been a great rule of thumb for this, where we've seen mass panic in people, going to the store, buying $1,000 worth of toilet paper and $2,000 worth of meat and milk, and basically saying screw you to your next human being beside you. We've seen probably some of the worst in humanity over the last year and a half. Have you guys looked into the socio-economic side of this as well with the SEU, Paul?
Well, I would say with, it's interesting, the split between science and religion. I would suggest sometimes that faith and reason can coexist. I would have to state that in terms of they're not naturally opposed. In fact, they can be combined with one another or work together. Religion, look at the Vatican. Pope Francis has actually said he'd be very open if it was proved that there were extraterrestrials circulating around on Earth. The question would be whether an alien would need baptizing. So there's actually a book being written by a priest on that topic, and the short answer would be, well, perhaps they don't commit sins, and thus they don't require any baptism, and if they had that degree of technology, then they must be a pretty functional species. So I would first of all want to complicate that, rendering that science versus is against or is in contradiction to religion. I know it's a big topic, but that would be the first take on that kind of interesting point there, Dave. Conspiracy theories and the limits of the knowledge and so on. What was the original thrust of the question? I got kind of sidetracked with the religion science.
Just the fact, is the socioeconomics of this planet ready for any type of disclosure of? I'm not saying aliens right now. I'm saying UAP. If the president of the United States came down, or whether it's Biden, whether it's Vladimir Putin, whether it's China, Japan, or whoever's going to be prime minister on Monday in Canada, okay, if one of them stood up to the podium and said, we are not alone. We have these craft. We don't know where they're coming from, but they are visiting Earth. That is going, the sheer panic of what we've seen, I think, will go above and beyond what we've seen with the way people are treating people with COVID. And this is a big issue.
Yeah, I had a sense, I was following the COVID on a news report back in December, and, there was this strange flu in China, and then it kept on spreading beyond China and Southeast Asia. And I said to my wife, we may be looking at something much bigger than 9/11 here. This could be a big phenomena. It could be 10 times bigger. But I had a creepy feeling about what was going to happen. And like you say, could COVID be eclipsed by a full-on disclosure? The disclosure, though, would have to come with some empirical evidence or some real kind of, again, back to proof and data and evidence. I mean, there is political discussions within the UFO circles. For some people, here I think of Dr. Stephen Greer, who suggests that any kind of disclosure would actually be part of a kind of government conspiracy. It would be a false flag. It would be a kind of false disclosure that would seek to clamp down and have more state power penetrate into people's lives. And so there's the debates about the status of what a disclosure would mean. It wouldn't be a simple one-way reading of it. Some people, of course, think that disclosure has already happened, that there's sufficient evidence that the government is slowly leaking out to people. It's not going to be a big flash in the pan kind of announcement. So what I find interesting, it's a thoroughly debated term. What exactly counts as a disclosure if it's already indeed happened or it's on a slow drip?
Robert, what's your thoughts?
Well, on the religious part, my view is the same actually as Paul. We actually have a member of SCU who's a doctor of religious studies.
Gym sessions and sweaty summer activities are back, which means more funky smells in your clothes because sweat leaves behind bacteria that causes those hard-to-remove odors. Clorox fabric sanitizer products are ready to zap the stink out of fabrics in your home by getting rid of 99.9% of odor-causing bacteria. Eliminate odors in every load or sanitize fabrics between washes with one of our fabric sanitizer products. Search fabric sanitizer at Clorox.com to learn more. When it counts, trust Clorox. Use as directed.
Okay, I admit it. When it comes to hand hygiene, I'm pretty passionate. So question is, what do you trust for daily hand washing?
HibaCleanse.
HibaCleanse, of course.
HibaCleanse.
Begins killing germs on contact for lasting protection between washes. Hands made happy with HibaCleanse. Available at Target. Go to hibacleanse.com/Target. That's HIBICLENS.com/Target.
His name's Ted Peters, and I think maybe Bob and Paul probably both know Ted. And Ted actually did a survey, where he asked people, how does this affect your religion if disclosure were to occur? And it was real interesting. It's like if you asked a Catholic, he'd say, it wouldn't affect mine, but I don't know that the Methodists and the Lutherans could handle it. And you ask the Methodists, and they'd say the same thing. It wouldn't affect my religion, but I don't know that anyone else could handle it. And so I don't really think it will have a big impact on religion per se. Let's see. Now I did like Paul. Got off on religion. What was the other half, Dave?
Well, just the socioeconomic.
Oh, okay, yeah. The socioeconomic. I think Paul's example of COVID is good because if you remember, this is how we react. We are a reactive society. We are not a society that anticipates things. So, like with COVID, as long as it was over in China and somewhere else, no one's buying toilet paper. Same thing if the president announces that, these UFOs are actually from another star system, no one's going to get excited. They'll continue to watch the Kardashians. But if they were to land, everyone will begin to buy their toilet paper and meat and eggs. And that's my view of it.
Very true.
Yeah. So my father had a doctorate in theology from Vanderbilt, and he attended Birmingham Southern and Emory and Vanderbilt and was a Methodist minister for 50 years. And my brothers and I we're all believers, but I live my every day here on Earth working with scientific stuff where I look at data and analyze it, and that in no way contradicts my personal beliefs about whether or not there is a great spirit or a universal consciousness or a God, because to me, they are not incompatible. There are, of course, very, very, very argumentative scientists that we all came from nothing, from nowhere, because quantum mechanics says we did. And and I've heard people take them on and argue against it. So it's a wide range of people that do science and the scientific type studies. Now, so I want to point out that we've had a lot of people act like idiots with COVID. On the other hand, there is not a single community in the entirety of the United States, Canada, that I'm aware of where people have not sacrificed themselves and their well-being to take care of others at great danger to themselves and to their families. It's going to be a time where we have some bad stuff happen, and history will see it, but there's also going to be a celebration of the unbelievable resilience we showed to deal with this. It took time to get there, and I don't think this is going to last as long as the Spanish flu. There's going to be some good, bad, and the ugly, but the good is going to win out because of the fantastic science, the fantastic medical professionals, and the fantastic public health people that have dealt with it. The people that are in our hospitals, they're unbelievable.
Well,
they're just so good.
I can tell you this, Bob, that it better end soon because it's sure putting a real damper on us putting together an SOR Vegas party.
We need to have a party in British Columbia.
Well, you got to get up here, and we got to introduce at least Dr. Paul to Samantha Mowat.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you want the real weird side of ufology that is brilliant?
You need to meet Samantha.
Yes. Robert, this one young lady who I met back on April 15th, 2014. All right, 25 minutes after meeting her, she walks me into a forest. This is 5 days after I had a craft land on the ground in front of me. She walks me into the forest behind the same property where this happens, and she's a lifelong ET contactee. We get 200 feet into the forest, and she asks me to look in a certain direction. I look in that certain direction, and 200 feet standing in front of me is a 10 to 12-foot extraterrestrial. Right in the middle of a forest. I would not believe it if I didn't see it for myself. And this lady, I always call her the best-kept secret in ufology. She lives in Prince George, Paul.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Snow Country coming up soon.
Yeah, so you won't be able to see her until at least April or May now. But yeah, she is literally the real deal. I actually had someone close to Luis Elizondo investigate her for a potential project, and this person actually called me back and said, Dave, she's incredible. We can't use her because she's way too far ahead of the game. That's how ahead she is. But you guys, that's not really the topic for tonight, neither here or there. But moving on, as we have about 7.5 minutes left with you guys tonight, SCU and Science and UFOs is the topic tonight on the big show. As we start to wind down here, what do you guys, and Robert, I'll start with you, want to profess to the UFO public, UFO Twitter, those who are just jumping on the bandwagon of this subject in regards to what they should be looking for, how they should take this entire phenomena and the strategy scientifically that you guys are taking to try and find out what is truly happening?
Oh, man, you don't ask any easy questions here, Dave.
Sorry. That's the Canadian in me. I got to apologize for that then.
I guess I would suggest that they read a good book that kind of covers a little of the history of the subject as well as a little of the science of the subject. I'm trying to think. I think J. Allen Hynek's The UFO Phenomenon is a good one. Is a good starter.
That's
Jackson Ray's The Secret College. Good one as well.
Invisible College.
Invisible College. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob. In terms of the kind of underground academic work, that's a good kind of historical touch point.
What do you want to see from the public? Let me reverse the question then for you, Paul. What do you want to see from the public as this subject continues to grow and take more mainstream attention?
Yeah, I think universities, public universities, they're right there in the public realm. Simon Fraser University, it typifies that place. I think the university is a place. It's raison d'etre is a place for free exchange of ideas, serious research, funded research, and I think for the university, the modern university is a prime, ideal site where discussion can happen. I think. Maybe it was partly because of the pandemic, but there has been a kind of slow uptake, maybe from some of the report from earlier this year from the Pentagon. I would like to see, with my work, greater links with academics, not just who are connected to SCU, but when I walk into the dean's office where I do a lot of admin work these days, I walk past through either the physics kind of corridors or past the chemistry labs. I would like to be able to reach out to my colleagues around the corner and really ask for their input with some of the papers that we've published with SCU. So, that bridge to getting the evidence that you talked about, Dave, closing the gap between the always seemingly just out of reach object and the truth. I think the academia has a big role to play here in bridging that gap, and I would like to see maybe some of that funding trickling into the universities. I would like to see a bigger kind of focus from academia on the topic.
All right, Paul, I have another question for you regarding this, because this topic isn't as hot button up here in Canada as it is in the United States. How are your colleagues and your students reacting to this news of potential UFOs, UAP, and the sorts, the entire subject? Are they even talking about it with you to learn more now that more information is coming out, that we aren't just a bunch of wingnuts playing on conspiracy theories?
Yeah, so with my project, it's always been well received. So we often think about academia as being very suspicious about the UFO topic. Granted, I'm a social scientist, so that may be part of it. But I think I've been received nothing but support from colleagues with some of the reports. What I find useful is that I can use the U.S. military as a source when I speak to my fellow academic colleagues to say, well, they're documented. In effect, these UAPs have been acknowledged to exist by a big establishment. And so that just makes it much easier for my colleagues to accept the conversation that we're having. It really helps legitimate my project, the SCU's work. I think, I don't want to go on COVID too much, but I think there's, I only just returned to campus after 544 days last week because all of the work was on Zoom. But it's precisely in the corridors of the university campus that you can have really decent discussions. So,
perfect.
Yeah, I think they'll be more open to these conversations.
Awesome. Robert, I'm going to give you the final word. We got about 2 minutes left here tonight. And I want to say a big thank you, Robert Powell and Dr. Paul Kingsbury, along with you, Science Bob, for joining us in one of these thrilling discussions that we have on this show. Please tell us about any SCU events coming up, Robert.
Well, let's see. The first week of June of next year, we will have a live conference this time in Huntsville, Alabama, along with a virtual conference. So it'll be a hybrid. Oh, what a good pun. It's getting late at night. So at any rate, you can join the conference in person, or you can join it via the internet. That will be the first week in June. And if you keep up with the SCU website at exploringscu.org, you'll get information as we identify our speakers, etc.
That is absolutely awesome. And Paul, do you have any events coming up for yourself?
Well, the main event is just I'm hoping to get the Errol Farouk's analysis of the Delphos case published on our website. Hopefully within a month. It's been through 2 rounds of revision. It's been pretty rigorous. So for me, that's a big event with the SCU, and I'm continuing to plow on with my single authored book about my entire project.
That is
we need to remind people that SCU has a YouTube channel and a lot of really, really interesting technical talks in this field by Kevin and others that have just been terrific. And people should go to the YouTube channel and check those out.
All right.
Thanks, Bob. That's right.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Science Bob, we'll talk to you very, very soon here on Spaced Out Radio with Science Bob and friends about 10 days away. Robert Powell and Dr. Paul Kingsbury from the SCU, the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies. I'm going to tell you, I was so nervous going into this show. I'm nervous that it's ending, but thank you so much for your professionalism and dedication to this subject. It is absolutely wonderful and more so necessary in the field of UAP, UFOs right now. Coming up next, everyone, we have John Hudson with the Unbiased UFO Report. We have Shirky's News and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. That was a fantastic show, gentlemen.
It was wonderful.
Wow.
It was good. Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Bob.
Oh, it was so good. I can't believe how fast it went by.
I'm going to be honest with you. I feel I got my ass kicked tonight. Big time.
Oh, you did great, Dave.
Oh,
you did. And I only had to bust your chops twice.
Well, yeah.
Well played, Dave. That was excellent.
Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah,
it was terrific.
Traffic control, like Robert said, these were toughy questions. Some of the good ones.
Well, I appreciate that, guys, because the one thing that I cannot offer in this entire field is research or scientific data. I went to journalism school, man, because I was terrible at math and science. And, I hate to say it, it really is when I'm around. I love being around brilliant people such as yourselves. But that inner child that we all have kind of makes you feel like you're only about this big and and really, really stupid. And not that you guys made me feel that way. You didn't at all, but there's an intimidation factor of it all that even though I'm a professional on the radio,
Sure.
I'm still human in the background, so any kind of compliment you guys are giving me, I'm going to graciously take that and say thank you to both you guys for coming on in. Science Bob, I'm not worried about you. I speak with you way too often, but
every day,
pretty much. But no, for you, Paul, you're somebody I highly respect and adore in this field, and to be able to call you a friend is really, really fantastic. And Robert, in my world now, I'm going to consider you a friend as well. And if you guys ever need anything from me, please let me know, and I'll do my best to give you the woo side of things, because that's all I can really offer.
Absolutely, Dave.
Well, thanks, Dave, and thanks, Bob. And
that was excellent.
Paul and I are going to be rooting for Everton FC to win tomorrow.
Yeah, that's our soccer team in the Premier League playing tomorrow, Dave.
I don't understand soccer. I'm allergic to it.
Yeah.
Gentlemen,
you're a hockey man, right?
I am a hockey guy, but I don't even like hockey much these days. I'm so disappointed in hockey right now. Don't even get me on that rant. Don't get me on that rant.
Well, okay.
Gentlemen,
have fun with John.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate each and every one of you.
Speak soon, Dave. Thanks a lot.
Take care, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Take care, Robert.
Good night, guys. That was frigging phenomenal. That was phenomenal.
That was a hard conversation.
It was.
A lot of really good topics brought up.
It was. Yes.
It was good. And I think it's going to make a lot of people reflect.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I don't really get intimidated during interviews. I was intimidated tonight.
Oh, Dave, you really, man, but you know what? Someday we'll break you of that.
Yeah. Doesn't happen often. Doesn't happen often. You know, like I said, my biggest fear is looking foolish and stupid in front of intelligent people. And because I've never really considered myself as an intelligent guy. I'm more of a blue-collar guy. And, you know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just that I don't know if it's that I guess when I was younger, I didn't like the sound of silence, but I've never had any sense of rank. I mean, ever. It's actually got me in trouble several times. Like, I'll talk to a CEO the same way I talk to a janitor. Like, I just don't care. And so, I sat on a plane for 4 hours with the deputy secretary of the DOE. We were both on our way to New Mexico. We talked about kids for 3 hours. He gave me parenting advice.
Right.
I mean, it's like, just a really nice guy, and I probably should have been terrified of him, but I guess maybe I'm just not smart enough, to be afraid.
Well, very true. Very true. We've got about just under 45 seconds. Hey, Jerry, how you doing? Jerry 2025. His call on aliens coming down 2025. And, from what I'm hearing, Jerry, I don't think on an early date, I don't think you're wrong.
1 year early.
Yeah. Well, everybody's saying 2026. And I've heard anywhere from 2024 to 2054. Hey, Nucker, how you doing? I'll give the rundown of the chats. Hey, guys, everybody in our YouTube channel, don't forget that there is the after show. John and I seem to have started this after show BS that keeps me up all hours of the night. I'm off tomorrow, too, so, yeah. Here we go. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Dave Scott. I'm the guy behind the microphone, the guy who brings the woo, not the science. But nonetheless, that's what we're here for a cornucopia. I don't think I've ever used the word cornucopia on this show. The cornucopia of topics that we like to bring. I can use cornucopia there, I believe. Anyways, want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Let's do this thing. Every couple of nights, we bring in our UFO Grandmaster, the fedora-wearing John Hudson, with the unbiased UFO report. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of interesting news coming down recently, John, as we bring you on in here, because Lou's talking again overseas. We got other things happening, like the SCU going into more science.
Welcome back to the quickest podcast ever, brought to you by Kohl's.
Today's topic, fall style.
Wait, wasn't it just June?
Right? So I went to Kohl's.
Of course you did.
I got a cute Cara Santana for 9 West sweater for 25% off and a great pair of Vans.
Love Vans.
And save 25% on a Champion hoodie for my husband.
Ooh, sounds cozy.
You should go. You'll get 15% off or 15, 20, or even 30% off with a Kohl's card.
BRB.
Select styles. Offers end September 26th. Champion coupons do not apply. Some exclusions apply. See store or kohls.com for details.
We did it again. Verizon was just named America's most reliable network by Root Metrics for the 16th time in a row, proving once again that nobody builds networks like Verizon builds networks. That's why we're building 5G right. That's why there's only one best network, Verizon. Best and most reliable based on Root Metrics reports from second half 2013 to first half 2021 of 3 operators on all network types combined, not specific to 5G networks.
the government and what they're covering up, and now Project Titan. Project Titan, this sounds pretty badass here.
Yeah, well, first off, hats off to whoever named it, right? I mean, that's one hell of a name
Strong
to get
name.
things started, right?
Strong
Yeah,
name.
no. Yeah, strong name. Yeah, so this is I'll be honest with you. I haven't yet found out what the real source of this is. I mean, was there an earlier attempt, or has this been in plan for a long time? But essentially, in the Italian town that called San Marino, that basically this conference has been held, I believe, every year for 30 years, if I understand correctly. It's been a small conference, but a dedicated one with good open conversation and so forth. And Lou Elizondo came to this one and spent some time, with a lot of different people at this conference. This is where the information about the AI tool came from. This is where some other things came from. And what this comes down to is that the government, the Italian government in San Marino is working with representatives from CUN and ICER to essentially petition the UN to adopt their yearly meeting and make it an official UN intersection for countries to come and discuss UFO issues. And they seem fairly confident that they have a good chance of pulling this off. And so the phrase that I really liked, but that I heard, was they want to basically turn this into the Geneva for the UN that for UFOs that Geneva is for everything else. And so they're really putting a lot into this. And Lou Elizondo seems to be pretty excited about it. There seems to be a lot of energy. They're certainly hitting at a fantastic time in that this all came out the same weekend that those bills came out in the U.S. We know that Lou Elizondo was speaking to many, many people at the conference. He presented at the conference, gave them an update on where we are with our research as much as he could, and seemed to build some good relationships with some folks. So my early judgment is this has some legs to it, but nonetheless, the attempt is honorable, and I applaud their effort.
Well, that's really cool that they're trying to bring the European side together. Have we noticed any differences of what they're doing in Europe with this topic comparatively to the way we're handling it in North America?
Unfortunately, yes. It depends on the area, right? I mean, you talk about the states being different. Well, let me tell you, the European countries are as different as anything else. And so, what you have in the north is you still have primarily a media blackout going on. I mean, there is especially when you get up near England, there is a real pushback, it's bad. It's not nice. It's a very unpleasant for the folks we have out there that are doing hard work. But in the South, it appears to be a little more open-minded. And I'll talk about something else in a minute. But there was actually some interesting occurrences that happened while Elizondo was down there. So I think what you have is you have different regions handling it in different ways.
What were those occurrences?
Well, for example, there was a case that I'm sure it's not a hidden case. It's a case that many people have heard of. But there was a supposed crash, an alleged crash that happened in Italy in 1933. And this was evidently difficult to get information on because Mussolini was in charge at the time, and his government wasn't really known for being open and friendly. And so but it turns out that a group of people, including, from what I'm told, some actual members of the Italian government, actually reached out to Lou Elizondo while he was at this conference and presented him with documents pertaining to this case. And a friend of our show, Macmillan from the debrief, basically said that he actually saw some of the documents himself. He wouldn't speak to what he saw, but he did say that he saw some of the documents himself, and he seemed a little excited about it. So just the fact that locals are reaching out to Lou Elizondo to share information, it's encouraging.
Well, that's good that this is encouraging and that Lou continues to be the face of the franchise regarding this. The one thing that I did notice, and that Lou finally went public recently with Max Moskowitz in his interview, that over the last few months he was diagnosed with cancer.
Yes. Well, it looked like it was going to be cancer. It looked like it was going to be cancer. It was a dense mass that was worrisome, and what he was basically told just I believe it was 3 days before this conference was that after some further tests and so forth, they no longer believe that it's malignant. They now believe that it's just a mass. So it looks like he's going to be okay. But needless to say, the scare and the challenge that put him and his family through for the last 3 months is it's difficult to put into words.
Very, very, very true. Let's move on to another topic here. DHS video being reviewed by the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies.
Yeah, so actually, I was hoping you might know something about this, Dave, with your connections, because I'll be honest with you, it's a little hard to find out what's going on here, because there are videos that a couple of us suspect that might be the video they're reviewing. Because my understanding, it's a long video. It's like a 20 or 30-minute video. And so I didn't know if it was possibly that A10 a video that we saw a while ago, or there's a new video that surfaced a couple of days ago that everyone's arguing about on Twitter, where it shows two craft flying next to a plane, and they look like very classic saucers. Very poor quality video, but still in heavy debate. So that could be the video. I don't really know what the video is, and I didn't know if your little elves and fairies have told you what video.
No, I knew nothing about this, man.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, yeah. So I guess they're reviewing it. I don't know how long they've been at it. And I have no idea what sort of date they're talking about, but I know that they are looking at it, which is cool. I mean, A, it'll be nice to get their perspective on something. B, I'm just excited they're participating.
I'm going to give you crap here for a second, because out of all the nights you could have maybe tipped me off.
Yeah, well, I know. The truth of the matter was that I for some reason I completely blanked on this one until like an hour ago, and it suddenly came back to me, and I was like quite irritated with myself. So I do apologize.
That's okay. We'll forgive you, because you work hard for us. You really work hard for us.
But it's exciting, because if they're really putting their efforts behind a true, honest analysis of the video, one, it's just great to get their review, but also we really haven't, like, since they did the Nimitz stuff, right? We really haven't seen what is representative work from them, right? So it'd be very, very interesting just to see what they produce. Right, because it will then become a model for us to see what we can expect from them in the future.
Well, there's a new video allegedly out there. You haven't seen it yet, about some sort of AI tool.
Yeah, so this one, I truly do apologize for this one, because and I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus on this. A video was expected to be released today that actually showed video of the tool being demoed at the conference. For some reason, it just didn't get put out. It could even be a time difference, because this is 16 hours ahead of me or so forth, and so it might be posted in the morning. But essentially, I was hoping to be able to give you guys more information about what I talked about the other day, because I'll be honest with you, I'm really excited about this. I spent 4 years on a machine learning research team. I have enough knowledge about it to be dangerous, and I really understand how this could work and how it could work well. And so I'm pretty excited about what the tool might be able to do for all of us.
Well, I mean, as we move forward into AI, how can we look at this technology in the way it could potentially help UFOs, ufology, and scientists learn about the technology of whatever is traveling?
So here's a good way of looking at it. First off, I know the media does, but in your heads, don't call it AI. It's not AI. Okay, it's machine learning. It might be deep learning. There's other names for it. It's not artificial intelligence. It's not thinking I want a sandwich. It's not thinking it wants to kill you. These are magnificent algorithms that are good at learning what is normal and then pointing out what isn't. And what we've seen in other fields is the ability, for example, to find tumors in lungs with incredibly higher statistics than any doctor has been able to pull off. We've been able to, there's even a project right now looking for signs of early Alzheimer's in brain imaging that's being done. Basically, our machine learning, it's good at whatever you teach it. And so if you feed it the right data, if you feed it enough of the right data, and you pick the right algorithms, and you take care of everything. There's a lot of details in this. You can get this magnificent system. But let me give you a quick example of how it can go wrong. There was this one gentleman that tried to program his camera so that it only opened the back door for his cat. Okay, and he took all these pictures of his cat and fed all these pictures of his cat into his algorithm, and then it didn't work. And what he didn't realize was that every picture he took of his cat had grass in the background. And so what the algorithm was looking for was a cat wearing grass on its head. And it never saw that. So it couldn't see the cat, right? So what I mean is it really is about the data you feed it, like data cleansing, data management, data massaging is a big aspect of this. But what it means is that if you feed this machine everything that you should be seeing in the sky, it is going to be able to find everything that is not supposed to be there with such speed and such accuracy, it'll blow your mind. And that's really what the value is of this technology. And it's not about thinking. It's not about considering. It's not going to noodle on something for some period of time. It's a matter of learning weighted systems that give it statistics and then using those statistics to predict things. And it's damn good at it. And it's being used in all sorts of things, and it's about time it be. The other place I want to use it, and I've been trying to find a way to get this project started, is I want to use it. I want to take it and I want to feed it every single document anyone's ever produced. Every single document in this field that anyone's ever produced, and I want to see what patterns it can find. I want to see if it can find authors. I want to see if it can find tones. I want to see if it can find source offices. Because if an office is from a certain part of the country, there's going to be a certain cadence, a certain different style to the way they write. Then it's going to be in a different country. There's all sorts of patterns you're going to be able to find. And that's something that I would love to see. There's a lot of opportunity for machine learning in this field.
That is so interesting, pumping through that. I mean, God, it would take days and months just to get through Stanton Friedman's files.
No, but that's the thing. It wouldn't. It wouldn't. It would only take a couple days. I mean, the difficulty would be normalizing all the data so you could feed it to the machine. But once you start feeding it, these things can absorb vast amount of knowledge at incredible rates of speed. And I'll be honest, some of it's a little spooky, right? Some of it's a little weird the way it works, and we're not really sure how some of it really works so well as it does. But it's amazing technology, and we should be applying it wherever we can.
All right, John, thank you so much for a wonderful, unbiased UFO report. And don't forget, it's that time of the week where John and I will stay up late with our YouTube and Twitch audience to hang out. And if you want to join in the chat and ask us a bunch of questions, you're more than willing to do so. We never really put a time limit on it, but it's basically until we get tired. That's just the way it is.
Till Dave gets tired.
Dave gets tired, because I literally hold the conch around here. John, thank you so much. We'll talk to you in just a few minutes' time. Right now, let's get to the news. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and finally, mysteries solved. Remember the good old days when McDonald's actually had characters like Ronald McDonald, the Hamburglar, Grimace? Did any of us really figure out what Grimace was? Just this big, purple, hairy, happy, smiley face, big-eyed guy. Looked like an alien. I would say something else, but I'm trying to keep this a family affair here. It turns out the large purple McDonald's mascot, who pals around with the likes of Ronald McDonald and Mayor McCheese, is an enormous taste bud. That's according to Brian Bates, who manages a Windsor, Ontario McDonald's. Yeah, he said that Grimace is an enormous taste bud, but a taste bud nonetheless. His purpose, according to Bates, is to show that McDonald's food tastes good. Bates was named Outstanding Manager of the Year for Canadian McDonald's stores. McDonald's did not reply to a request to confirm this news that Grimace was actually a taste bud. The character was first introduced in 1972, originally as a villain, but that version of Grimace scared some young customers, and he was turned into a less threatening, friendly blob, which we now know is a taste bud, a purple taste bud. Hey, for you parents out there, or people in general, what would you do in this situation? A mother in Alabama has been arrested and put in jail for assaulting an 11-year-old she believed was bullying her child on a school bus. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Department says that 37-year-old Nanette Waldrop boarded the bus Tuesday morning to beat an elementary student she thought was picking on her child. It was caught on video. Of course, it went viral. Waldrop was charged with assault and disorderly conduct, along with trespassing. She was posted a bond of $10,500 and was released. While this is now a law enforcement matter, let me just say what I saw on the video just deeply disturbs me, the superintendent of Jefferson County Schools said. At no point is any type of violence acceptable, especially violence against students. Now, the question is, if you were a parent and your kid was being bullied by a student, I can understand where she lost it. I can, because no child deserves to be bullied. But she took the law in her own hands and now has to pay the price. A cottage inspired by the home of Winnie the Pooh is available for rent in England to celebrate the beloved character's 95th anniversary celebration. The Bear B&B Cottage, a partnership between Disney and Airbnb, was designed in East Sussex's Ashdown Forest by Kim Raymond, an artist who has been drawing Pooh for 30 years. Raymond said she used details from A.A. Milne's books and E.A. Shepard's original illustrations to make the cottage an accurate representation of the snack-loving bear's home. The cottage bears a Mr. Sanders sign above the door, and the cupboards are stocked with pots labeled honey. How cool is that? Fantastic. Winnie the Pooh's Canadian, by the way. We always got to try and get that in there. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Get your responses. Today's Thought of the Day is, what's your thoughts on Lou Elizondo writing an autobiography? Jeff, I'm not against it, but I'm sure I've heard him make comments about how more people are worried about protecting their cottage industry and selling their books than getting to the truth of the matter. Chris, fine by me. Jeremy, sick of Elizondo, honestly. Appreciate what he's done, but I'm sick and tired of the teases, and I need to be careful about my NDAs. Gail, everyone has a right and privilege to write books. His life has been filled with remarkable people and events. It should be a good read. John, unless it's all aliens are real and I've seen them, then it won't be much more exciting than what he's already told us. Lee, I'd sooner see him share some new authentic evidence, but if he wants to write a book and donate a huge chunk of the royalties to a worthy cause, I'm cool with that. Grant Cameron, who are the authoritarians trying to deny his right to pen his book? Well, there's a bunch of people out there who thinks he's a conniver for doing so, a cheater, somebody who's using ufology to make a dollar. Heaven forbid. Yep. Davey, bet that he writes his autobiography, then when he writes my biography, that would be a dull read. Ray, really? A guy with 4 letters in his first name needs a shorter nickname? Apparently so, Ray. Apparently so. Catherine, isn't an autobiography written by an outside source? No, that's a biography. James, looking forward to it. Thank you to everybody taking part in the Thought of the Day. Shirky Poo for the news, John Hudson for the UFO report, and Robert Powell, Paul Kingsbury, and Science Bob for some scientific UFO talk. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone on YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Twitch, Facebook, Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
We're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, yeah, we've got room for them too, damn it. Let's do it. Good night.
We did it again. Verizon was just named America's most reliable network by Root Metrics for the 16th time in a row, proving once again that nobody builds networks like Verizon builds networks. That's why we're building 5G right. That's why there's only one best network, Verizon. Best and most reliable based on Root Metrics reports from second half 2013 to first half 2021 of 3 operators on all network types combined, not specific to 5G networks.
Experience gorgeous, lasting, high-quality hair color with Madison Reed. Find your perfect shade at madison-reed.com and get 10% off plus free shipping on your first color kit. Use code RADIO10.